Chapter 10-12. The land of extreme negative energy was located between the misty snow region and the wavy cloud region. There was a stoneman formation in this place. In the past, Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng had entered the underground world from this place. Rumble. The stoneman formation, which was made up of many stone men, suddenly started to move. These stone men kept moving like stars, or like two invisible giants using the stone men as chess pieces. In the blink of an eye, the stoneman formation had changed hundreds of times. After a few blinks of an eye, the stoneman formation had changed beyond recognition. The moment the stone golem formation stopped moving, a vast ripple spread out. Then, a transparent light formation appeared above the stone golem formation. The light formation covered an area of several dozen li, and there were people standing on the surface of the light formation. At a rough glance, there were at least 100,000 of them, and the 100 or so people in the lead did not have powerful auras. However, when they opened and closed their eyes, there seemed to be stars appearing and disappearing, and all sorts of mysterious trajectories could be seen. Elysium is in danger. Everyone, it's time for us to do our part. Standing at the front was a white-haired old man. He wore a simple robe, and his hair was draped over his shoulders. He held a wooden staff in his hand, and at the end of the staff, there was a huge sky-blue gem. Since ancient times, every time Elysium faced a calamity, our underground race has never been absent. This time is no exception. In order to prevent Elysium from being enslaved, don't show any mercy. Now, let's show those humans on the surface how powerful our will is, and how magical our will attacks are. Let's go. The brown-robed old man standing next to the white-haired old man waved his hand and shouted. Whoosh. As soon as the brown-robed old man finished his words, the light formation gradually turned illusory. In the next moment, the huge light formation, carrying more than 100,000 people, disappeared into the void. These puppet battleships should be at the same level as the puppet sect's battleships from 5,000 years ago. However, back then, the puppet sect only managed to develop 3 battleships, but there are 400 of them here. The puppet school had long since been submerged in the river of time, but the puppets they had left behind were still impressive. It was said that the sect-protecting battleship of the puppet school could fight against several normal kings. If it was given time to accumulate energy, it could kill a peak king in one shot. Of course, this was just pure power. A peak king would not just stand there and let it kill them, but it also reflected the destructive power of the battleship. Forget it. If worst comes to worst, we'll just fight to the death. Since we can't defend Elysium, I, the Void Ancestor, am willing to fight to the death. I believe that the spirits of our ancestors in heaven won't blame us too much. The Void Ancestor's expression calmed down, his eyes filled with the resolution of certain death. The time given to us is too short, and the time given to those geniuses is also too short. They haven't grown strong enough yet. Although the internal conflict can make them stronger and cultivate a real GU king, time waits for no man. Jailer glanced at Yi Chen and sighed. The latter was undoubtedly a peerless character of this era. If he had enough time, he would not be weaker than Yuan Emperor and the others. If they had known that the foreign race's calamity would come so soon, they wouldn't have minded making Elysium more chaotic. Perhaps it would have helped the geniuses grow faster. One should know that a person as powerful as Yuan Emperor could fight against hundreds of kings. They could use guerrilla warfare to kill batch after batch of enemies until all of them were dead. It's not too late. As long as we can hold on until the underground race arrives, we still have hope. Xianhu looked at the sky. The underground race? Yes, but we don't know if the current underground race is strong enough. Otherwise, it would just be a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. There weren't many people who knew about the underground race. The underground race didn't want too many people to know about their existence. They had always been mysterious. The puppet warships were moving very fast. The dazzling blue flame at their tail gave them a strong driving force. Inside each puppet warship, there were dozens of demons. They were either controlling the direction and driving force of the warship, or controlling the puppet cannons at the front and sides of the warship. They had a clear division of labor. You still have a chance to surrender now. We, the demons, actually don't want to kill wantonly. We are even willing to govern Elysium together with you. However, if you are stubborn, then don't blame us, the demons, for not giving you a chance." One of the 6-star devils said. "Pooey." Chu Zhongtian spat on the ground. "You want us to surrender? What a joke. If we govern together, I'm afraid we will become your puppets. My master has already sacrificed himself. I, Chu Zhongtian, am not a coward who is afraid of death. If you want to take over Elysium, you have to step over my dead body. Otherwise, don't even think about it. In Elysium, there are only kings who die in battle. There are no kings who surrender. I would like to see how tough your puppet warships are. Can they withstand my hammer? You want us to surrender? Dream on. If you want to fight, let's fight. Why are you talking so much nonsense? The death of more than 300 kings didn't make the remaining people timid. Now, they were in a killing frenzy. The only thing on their minds was how to survive and kill more enemies. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Kill them all. The Lord of Fear was more inclined to kill this group of people. Kill all those who dared to resist in Elysium. Only by killing all those who resisted could they take over Elysium more smoothly. Shio. The demon kings and the puppet warships advanced rapidly. The cannons of the puppet warships were already flickering with different colors. That was a sign that the cannons were about to be fired. Don't give the puppet warships the chance to accumulate energy. Charge. Now, the people of Elysium had been forced to the edge of a cliff. If they took a step back, they would be in the abyss. If they took a step forward, they would be facing countless enemies. They might as well fight to the death. None of them fled. None of them retreated. All of them executed their movement techniques and pounced forward from all angles. Some of them faced the puppet warships above, while some faced the demon kings. All of them were emitting a tragic aura as though they were facing death calmly. Their eyes were filled with madness and terrifying calmness. Kill. The Lord of Fear was the first to charge at the Void Ancestor. The Lord of Fear had never killed a living person. The other party was no exception. Boom boom boom. The battle began once again. The moment it started, it entered a white-hot stage. It was several times more tragic than before. After a few breaths, more than 100 puppet warships had accumulated energy. Beams of different colors shot out, interweaving into a web of death. The Elysium demon kings that were hit by these beams of light died instantly. Although most of them didn't die, they were sent flying or had half their bodies shattered. They were then easily killed by the demon kings that rushed over. The situation was one-sided. Break. Dugu-Ju gripped his saber with both hands and swung it down heavily. Whoosh. A pale white saber light sliced through the sky. 3 puppet warships were cleaved into 2. Another 2 puppet warships were sent flying by the aftershocks of the saber light. Their surfaces were flickering. Essence of the realm, reincarnation. Mysterious Queen's eyes were cold. Her hands rapidly formed seals, and many mirrors were born in the void. These mirrors absorbed any energy that was reflected on them, and then shot out beams of colorful light towards the puppet battleships in the sky. For a moment, there were puppet battleships exploding from time to time, like huge fireworks blooming. Moreover, as long as these mirrors existed, they would continue to absorb energy and attack. Every attack was equivalent to the full force of a titled monarch. The results were glorious. In a short period of time, 20 puppet warships were destroyed. However, on the side of Elysium, dozens of demon kings had died. Following that, the demon kings that attacked the puppet warships were surrounded by 3 demon kings. They didn't have the time to attack the puppet warships. In the sky above the ocean-gazing domain, boundless waves appeared out of nowhere. A huge light formation appeared. Kill. One figure after another flew down from the light formation and joined the battlefield. Because they had come so suddenly, the demon army was slaughtered. The attacks of these people were different from normal humans. Their attacks were abnormally fleeting. They didn't seem to make any movements, but their attacks landed on the demon soldiers. Some of the stronger ones even created terrifying storms. These storms wreaked havoc, and wherever they went, The demon soldiers were torn to pieces. "They're here." Serenity's eyes lit up. Her face was full of joy. "It's the underground race." Li Xiaoyun was also very excited. Just like Yi Chen, he had entered the underground world before. Serenity was the saintess of a sacred race in the underground world. The people of the underground world didn't cultivate true yuan. Instead, they mainly cultivated will. Will was formless and intangible, but it had a huge destructive power. Moreover, it showed no signs of attacking. "The reinforcements are here. Everyone, continue to kill." Although they didn't know the origin of these people, they only killed the demons and not them. It was obvious that they were the mysterious reinforcements of Elysium. For a moment, everyone's morale was high. Tens of thousands of underground humans had thrown themselves into the battlefield, causing a huge impact. These underground humans could use their thoughts to create a very large defensive barrier, and everyone was very safe inside. Normally, as long as dozens of underground humans joined hands, they would be able to make the defensive barrier last for a very long time, and the people inside the defensive barrier were not restricted by the defensive barrier, so they could fiercely attack the demon clan outside. As such, the devil race army was naturally killed in an incomparably sullen manner. On the light formation, there were more than 100 people left. The white-haired old man waved his hand, and the light formation broke through the space and swept towards the battlefield of the demon kings. Lan Sanmai had tried her best to kill, but there were too many enemies. She had just slashed a demon king's body when she was attacked several times. If she hadn't reacted in time and avoided being hit in the vital parts, she would have died. But now, she had nowhere to hide. A total of 5 demon kings were attacking her together. Buzz. At this moment, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared in front of Lan Sanmai. The horrifying attack landed on it, stirring up a large amount of ripples. The next moment, the invisible barrier shattered, but it also gave Lan Sanmai enough time to dodge. Raising her head, Lan Sanmai saw many unfamiliar people. These people didn't have any true yuan aura on them, but they were all extremely fast, as if they were moving with their will. Chapter 10:13. Haha, the underground race is finally here. Although the prison ancestor's limbs had been sent flying by the 3 6-star demon kings and his body was badly mutilated, he still laughed heartily when he saw the hundreds of strangers who had suddenly joined the battlefield. He knew that with these hundreds of underground kings, they wouldn't be able to turn defeat into victory, but at least they had the confidence to fight. "Underground race, it's all up to you now." After the Void Ancestor said this, he was immediately torn into 2 by the Lord of Fear. The Lord of Fear's hands emitted black demonic fire, instantly turning the Void Ancestor into ashes. Not a single drop of blood was left. The brown-robed old man next to the white-haired old man snorted and sighed softly. "This demon is so powerful. My mental barrier only lasted for less than 1/100th of a blink of an eye, and it was forcefully torn apart by him. Just now, he had wanted to save the Void Ancestor, but the Lord of Fear's strength was beyond his imagination. His combat power is close to that of a 7-star. Naturally, he isn't someone you can resist. Leave him to me." The white-haired old man raised his cane high, and more than 10 different colored light beams were bounced back, piercing through the puppet battleship that had fired the cannons. "All right, I can't resist this demon, but he doesn't seem to be the most powerful one." The brown-robed old man couldn't help but look at Yi Chen and the Troll Emperor, who were hundreds of thousands of miles away. With his mental power, his senses could extend very far. That place was like a chaotic and disorderly black hole. Just his mental power alone made him feel like he was being affected. It was hard to imagine how powerful the 2 sides were. The brown-robed old man could discover Yi Chen and the Troll Emperor, so the white-haired old man was no exception. As he bounced back countless attacks, he said, "That's a battle between 7-star. A 7-star and a 6-star overlord might seem like a small level difference, but if you want to cross over, your strength will increase by at least 2 or 3 times. That troll's demonic power is endless. Kings who are much stronger than him might not be able to do anything to him. That young man's sword intent has already reached the 8th level, and he has formed a protective sword intent. If his sword intent doesn't scatter, at least 50% of the attacks that land on him will be blocked. The 8th level sword intent is really incredible. The brown-robed old man, who had already killed several demon kings, said in surprise. Their underground race mainly cultivated mental power, which was another way of using the will. It was a kind of invisible mental power. To be more precise, it used the will as the core and acted on the outside world, producing a huge amount of power. Therefore, the will of the underground race would increase along with the realm. However, there was only one person whose will had reached the 8th level, and that was the great patriarch of the underground race, the white-haired old man in front of him. The brown-robed old man himself only had peak 7th step willpower. Of course, although the willpower of Will and Jin Yuan were the same, the degree of excavation was completely different. It was not an exaggeration to say that those who cultivated Will had already excavated their willpower to the limit, while those who cultivated Jin Yuan could only excavate 20 to 30% of their willpower. With different DAOs, the emphasis was also different. In the underground world, there was no way to cultivate Jin Yuan, so they could only focus on cultivating mental power. If they were to divert their attention to cultivating Jin Yuan, they would not be able to do either. Moreover, the higher the realm, the more they could not afford to be distracted. They could only focus on one, because in the later stages, if they cultivated both at the same time, there would be a divergence, and they could fall into bedevilment at any time. However, reaching the 8th level at such a young age was definitely shocking. If any young man in the underground world could reach the 8th level will, he would definitely be the next great patriarch, and he would also be promoted from a saint to a great saint. Apart from the fact that he wouldn't have the authority of a great patriarch, his status would be the same as the great patriarchs, and the other saints would have to respect him. Old man, if you had not come out, you would still have been able to protect yourselves. Within 3 to 5 years, even us demons would not be able to do anything to you. Now, let's die together with them. After killing the Void Ancestor, the Lord of Fear did not stop, continuing to attack the white-haired old man. Regarding the existence of the underground race, he naturally knew about them. In the previous battle with Elysium, these underground race had appeared. Hong, a palm shot out, and the terrifying bloody light turned into countless bloody shadows that rushed toward the white-haired old man. The underground race is also a part of Elysium. When Elysium is in trouble, how could we not come? On the other hand, you demons have never won, and this time will not be an exception. The white-haired old man held the staff in his right hand, and stretched it out. The next moment, the sky-blue gem at the end of the staff flashed, and a slightly blue curved mental barrier blocked in front of him. Layers of bloody shadows crashed onto it, and there was a soft popping sound. If there were more than 200 of you, I might be a little afraid, but now? You're just a joke. The Lord of Fear's figure followed closely behind the bloody shadows. With a rip of his large hand, the blue curved mental barrier was forcibly torn apart, revealing a gap. The Lord of Fear, who had half of his body squeezed over, opened his mouth, and spat out a jet of black demonic fire. Disintegrate. The white-haired old man was calm and unruffled. The space in front of his brow rippled, and the black demonic fire suddenly paused before disintegrating at an extremely fast speed. Oh, you have some skills. Although this was what he said, the Lord of Fear's expression became much more solemn. When one's mental power was cultivated to a certain level, in terms of strength, it could pull down stars, and in terms of subtlety, it could disintegrate all things. Obviously, the white-haired old man opposite him had already reached this level. Blood Soul Divine Fist. However, the stronger the enemy, the stronger his killing intent would be. The mental barrier collapsed, and a blood-red fist blasted toward the white-haired old man's head. The bloody light on this fist had turned into liquid, and from liquid to solid again. The surface of the fist was constantly jumping with blood-colored lightning. Before it got close to the white-haired old man, it made his chi and blood boil, and his body seemed to be about to explode, transforming into chi and blood into this fist. This was a martial art of the demons that restrained people with weak bodies, and it was the most suitable to deal with the underground clan. Dimensional shield. The white-haired old man's means were more than what the Lord of Fear had imagined. His body didn't move, But the white-haired old man's figure suddenly moved away. There seemed to be a layer of world between the two of them, and the slightest deviation could lead to a great error. The trajectory of the Lord of Fear's blood-soul divine fist deviated to an unknown place, and the last punch blasted a demon king tens of thousands of miles away into nothingness. Damn it, this old guy isn't that easy to deal with. The Lord of Fear put away his contempt. Although the old man opposite him had a weak body, it wasn't easy to attack him. On the contrary, it was very difficult. The white-haired old man also raised his spirit. As a will king, it wasn't that he didn't have an undying body. On the contrary, no one in Elysium could compare with him in terms of undying body. Every flesh particle in his body contained a rank 6 will. Under normal circumstances, if a flesh particle contained a rank 4 will, it would be the realm of blood rebirth. However, the weak chi and blood was an unavoidable weakness of the underground race. They didn't cultivate Jin Yuan, so Jin Yuan and chi couldn't be exchanged. Under normal circumstances, even if their bodies were smashed dozens of times, they would still be able to reform their bodies. Because of the rank 5 will, these flesh particles were extremely difficult to destroy, and it was even more impossible to destroy them all. It was like how you could smash an egg with one punch, but if you were asked to smash a rock, the difficulty would increase by dozens of times. However, everything had its advantages and disadvantages. The flesh particles were extremely difficult to destroy, but if the chi and blood of the flesh particles were extracted, the will would lose its sustenance and dissipate into nothingness. The Lord of Fear's blood-soul divine fist could undoubtedly extract a large amount of his chi and blood. If he was hit once, his vitality would definitely be greatly damaged. The appearance of the underground race turned the situation around. On Elysium's side, they were no longer in a passive situation. These will kings could reflect the light beams of the puppet battleships, and they could even control the direction of the puppet battleships, causing them to attack each other, causing internal friction. Of course, as the Lord of Fear had said, the will kings of the underground race were still too few. Although they could catch the demons unprepared at the beginning, as time went on, the balance was still slowly tilting towards the demon's side. The only fortunate thing was that with the addition of the underground race, the number of people dying began to decrease. It's not a solution to drag on like this. Yi Chen, who was fighting with the Troll Emperor, frowned unknowingly. The appearance of the underground race did make him happy for a while, especially that white-haired old man, whose strength was comparable to the Lord of Fear, and that brown-robed old man also had peak 6-star battle prowess. They could be said to be two great reinforcements. However, there were still more than 500 demons, plus more than 300 puppet battleships. The gap was still huge, and if this dragged on, Elysium would be exhausted to death. Besides that, Yi Chen didn't know if it was just an illusion, but he had a vague premonition that a huge crisis was quietly approaching, and his mind was very depressed. It's almost time for you to die. The Troll Emperor was like a tireless machine, attacking Yi Chen again and again. Although the violent fist force was mostly offset by the sword will armor, Yi Chen still didn't feel very good. After all, he didn't have an indestructible body. After fighting with the opponent for countless moves, there would always be a little reaction, and now, the reaction was getting more and more intense. Yi Chen was about to retort, but suddenly, his eyebrows twitched, and he knew something was wrong. The Yuan Emperor's voice sounded in his mind. Someone was unsealing the seal of the demon space. It should be known that the demon space was the demon ancestral tree. Once the demon ancestral tree was released, it would be an irreversible disaster. These demons had their cultivation suppressed by Elysium, so their strength was reduced by many times. If they came into contact with the demon ancestral tree, they would return to their peak. At that time, not to mention a group of demon kings, just a single troll emperor could kill all of them, and no one would be able to stop him. Senior, what should we do? Yi Chen asked anxiously. The Yuan Emperor said, it's too late. They seem to have made a plan, and only started to unseal it now. By the time we get there, the seal will have already been unsealed. Now, we can only hope that the immortal tree has awakened, otherwise, the Yuan Emperor didn't continue, but Yi Chen knew what the consequences were. For a moment, his heart was as heavy as water. Chapter 1014. Kill. Due to the arrival of the underground race, the battle between the kings had fallen into a stalemate. Only 1 or 2 people would die after a while. However, in the sea-gazing region, the situation did not return to a stalemate because of the appearance of the underground race. Instead, it became more and more tragic. On the ground, there were corpses, broken flesh, and blood. A large number of broken weapons were stuck on the ground, and the blood had yet to dry. As the wind blew past, the pungent smell of blood almost made people suspect that they had entered a world of blood. Junior brothers and sisters set up the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword formation. Yang Jianhui said to Dongfang Bai, Lung Xinghan, and the others as he watched more and more demons rush over. All right. Dongfang Bai nodded. Up until now, they had consumed more than half of their Jin Yuan. Although everyone had improved, and their killing methods were getting better, facing the endless demon army, if they were alone, they would only be killed. As for the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword formation, it was a simplified version of the Big Dipper 7-star sword formation. It only needed 7 people to set it up, and if they used it well, it could increase their strength by 7 times. The 7 people setting up the sword formation were Yang Jianhui, Dongfang Bai, Huang Sumei, Lung Xinghan, Yi Xian, Yi Xiaoxiao, and a genius disciple of the Yi clan, Yi Yang. Although the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword formation was a simplified version of the Big Dipper 7-star sword formation, the difficulty of setting it up increased instead. Without a natural talent, it would be impossible to comprehend the essence of the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword formation. 2 years ago, Yi Chen had them practice the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword formation, and would occasionally spar with them to point out their mistakes and misunderstandings. 3 months ago, they had finally practiced the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword formation to completion. 1 person was equivalent to 7 people, and 7 people were equivalent to 1 person. Every move of theirs had 7 times the power, and their Jin Yuan was connected as 1. The 7 people stood in the shape of the Big Dipper 7-star sword formation, and then moved quickly. Although their positions would change every time they moved, the overall shape remained the same. Sometimes, it looked like the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, and sometimes it was slanted, straight, and sometimes even vertical. Gradually, their dantian lit up like twinkling stars, and with their Jin Yuan as the center, they're connected. Kill. Yang Jianhui waved his sword, and 1,000 Zhonglong sword light sprinkled out, turning a row of demon army soldiers into a blood mist. Kill. Dongfang Bai, Huang Sumei, Lung Xinghan, Yi Xian, Yi Xiaoxiao, and Yi Yang also waved their swords. They could feel that as they waved their swords, their dantian would swell a bit, and then the abundant Jin Yuan would pour into their swords. This was the power of the sword formation, and also the power of all of them. Of course, everything had its advantages and disadvantages. Although the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword formation was powerful, its consumption of Jin Yuan would also increase by 7 times. Fortunately, they were only at the astral reaching realm, and could take pellets to replenish Jin Yuan. This time, Yi Chen had given each of them a lot of pellets of all kinds, so they wouldn't have to worry about running out of Jin Yuan. Dao is emotionless, but also emotional. In the demon army that was extremely far away, countless sword lights appeared. These sword lights were extremely sharp and indestructible. However, their shapes were extremely soft, like ribbons, or willow catkins dancing in the sky. The demons that were entangled by these sword lights did not even have the time to scream before they were cut into hundreds of pieces. Li Daoxian, your emotionless sword art has improved again. I wonder how it compares with my fire spirit godly blade. The crimson blade light crisscrossed, sweeping everything in its way. Yang Qihua laughed out loud as he said to Li Daoxian, only by staying alive will there be a meaning to the competition. Li Daoxian sighed lightly. He had killed a lot of demons, but up until now, he had also seen countless martial geniuses fall with his own eyes. Many of them were martial geniuses on the hidden dragon rank. Dying with honor. They did not come here for nothing. Perhaps, in a while, we will all die with honor. Let's keep killing. Bing Ling seems to have killed more demons than us. Yang Qihua saw Bing Ling, who was dozens of miles away. Bing Ling's Ice Jin Yuan was the most suitable for group battles. As soon as those demons got close to her, their blood vessels were immediately frozen, and their movements became sluggish. In the next moment, their bodies were covered with a thin layer of frost, and they could only use 50 to 60% of their power at most. However, those demons that were hit by her were not only torn into pieces, but there was also no blood splashing out. All the blood had been frozen. Boom, boom, boom. Ice fragments flew everywhere. Bing Ling was like an ice storm. Wherever she went, the temperature began to plummet. Although her battle power might not be higher than Li Daoxian and Yang Qihua, the number of demons she killed was higher than the two. The area they were in was just a few small dots on the sea gazing. Compared to the whole battlefield, it was almost negligible. If the huge sea gazing was shrunk, one could see that the black color represented by the demon army was like ink, spreading out. Anything in front of the ink would be eroded bit by bit until nothing was left. In other words, the demon army had already occupied the absolute advantage. Whether it was the number or the average battle power, they were higher than Elysium. Although the participation of the underground race had caused a lot of casualties in the demon army, the smarter demons began to understand how to break up into smaller groups. Like a cavalry, they charged at the opponent in groups. "We can't hold on much longer," Brother Sunday Wang Snake and Wang Mai stood side by side, blocking the locust-like demon army. Beside them were the members of the South Shallow Sea Alliance, which had less than 3,000 of them left. It should be known that before the war started, they had more than 10,000 members. But now, more than 70% of them had died. "Even if we can't hold on, we have to." Sun Xiaojin had turned into a red-gold evil ape, which was 10,000 meters tall. The iron rod in his hand was also 10,000 meters long. With a casual wave, a large number of demons would explode. However, his huge body made him a living target. Without a choice, his body instantly shrunk. Hearing that, he turned his head and yelled. At this moment, they could not retreat. Once they retreated, they would definitely be defeated. This was not the same as fighting alone. At the same time, the fallen Dust Sword sect was also facing a serious challenge. More than 20,000 demon army had their eyes on them and were attacking from all directions. Even though they could arrange sword formations, facing enemies that were several times their size, it was still extremely difficult. In a short period of time, 2 sword snake formations and 1 sword dragon formation had already been broken. The people who had arranged the sword formations had all died in battle. Even the sword formations had been broken, not to mention those fallen Dust Sword sect members who could not arrange sword formations and could only cooperate with each other. "Jua, live well. You are my pride. I can die without regrets." From afar, Dugu Ju had seen his father, the leader of the Dugu family, being killed by 2 demon kings. Before his death, his father had glanced at him with eyes full of pride and a faint longing. Dugu Ju knew what that faint longing was. It was his father's longing for his mother. His mother had died a long time ago. At that time, he was still a child. And now, his father had also died. Although, as he had said, he could die without regrets. But, why did his heart hurt so much? Ah! Like a wounded wolf, Dugu Ju raised his head and roared. It was a roar that went straight into one's soul, as well as a kind of anger and madness that came from the soul. His white hair grew crazily, and the aura on Dugu Ju's body had completely surpassed that of a human. Anyone who came in contact with this aura would be filled with despair. "Die. All of you, die. All of you, die for me." The saber was no longer a saber, but a raging flame of vengeance. The saber in Dugu Ju's hand was wrapped in pale white flames. As he waved it, the pale white flames swept everywhere. The despairing saber intent contained in it was many times stronger than before. Even if one was touched by it, one would feel despair and die. Phut, phut, phut. The 3 demon kings around Dugu Ju did not even have the time to scream before they were swallowed by the pale white flames. Before they died, a pale white spiritual body seemed to merge into their saber intent. Completely ignoring his own existence, Dugu Ju dashed towards the 2 demon kings who had killed his father at a terrifying speed. 2 sabers. Just 2 sabers. The two demon kings died just like that. They could not understand why Dugu-Ju's strength had increased by several times. That terrifying saber intent made them feel despair, causing their strength to be greatly reduced. Of course, they did not know that Dugu-Ju's saber intent was the extremely rare despairing saber intent. When his emotions were greatly stimulated, his strength would skyrocket. His saber art would also unknowingly reach a terrifying realm of self-improvement. At this moment, Dugu-Ju's strength had impressively reached the 6-star level. Yi Chen, the seal of the demonic space has been unsealed. After about 5 minutes, Yuan Emperor's voice rang in Yi Chen's mind. Yi Chen was already mentally prepared for this. However, no matter how mentally prepared he was, such a grievous news still made him feel an unprecedented sorrow. Haha, the outcome has been decided. As the commander of the demons, the Troll Emperor also knew about the unsealing of the demonic space. He immediately laughed out loud, looking at Yi Chen as if he was looking at a dead man. As long as his strength returned to its peak, not to mention one Yi Chen, even 10 Yi Chens would be annihilated by him with one punch. Even if Yuan Emperor were to come back to life, he would be able to easily kill him. As a demon emperor at the 7th layer of life and death realm, according to this world's battle strength, he would have a 9-star battle strength. At that time, who would be able to stop him? It should be known that not only had his cultivation base been suppressed by 2 layers, he could not use the demon's martial arts to its peak. Moreover, his body had been sealed, and a large amount of his essence, qi, and soul had been worn away, and he had yet to recover. Even Lu Xiaoyu could unleash a sword strike that burned his life force. I, Yi Chen, am not afraid of anything. 3rd layer of life and death realm, break through for me. His sorrowful mood was cut down by the sword intent. Blue veins popped out on Yi Chen's forehead like small snakes, and his aura increased exponentially. Immediately after, an unknown flame burst out of his body, causing cracks to appear on his body, as if he was a delicate porcelain that was about to shatter. Chapter 10-15. What? He wants to break through to the 3rd sky of life and death realm? The Troll Emperor was stunned. Elysium was not a perfect world. In fact, the world the demons lived in was not a perfect world either. However, compared to Elysium, the world the demons lived in was undoubtedly more advanced and closer to perfection. Therefore, the demons could cultivate to the 5th sky of life and death realm in their own world. Of course, ordinary demons could only cultivate to the 3rd sky of life and death realm. If they continued to advance, they would be devoured by the rules and turn into ashes. As far as he knew, the cultivation limit of Elysium was the 2nd sky of life and death realm. As long as one didn't go through a dead end, no one could surpass this realm. Even someone as amazing as the Yuan Emperor was only at the peak of the 2nd sky of life and death realm. He would never be able to advance an inch in his life, and he wouldn't dare to do so unless someone forced him to risk his life. What a pity. Such a genius doesn't die by my hands. But soon, the Troll Emperor shook his head. He didn't think Yi Chen could reach the 3rd sky of life and death realm. Rules were rules, and they wouldn't change because of anyone or anything. Although Elysium was their home, Elysium itself couldn't change the rules. Of course, the premise was that Elysium had its own consciousness. Once the rules were changed, it would be disorderly, and the result of disorder would be destruction. Crack. A faint crackling sound came from Yi Chen's body. It was the sound of a burning flame. This kind of flame came from nothingness and started exploding from the depths of his cells. The destructive power it produced was even more frightening than having one's body torn apart. This was because it was erasing the will of the cells. Once the will collapsed, Yi Chen's body would turn into ashes, leaving nothing behind. Clenching both of his fists, Yi Chen's expression was unprecedentedly firm. It seemed as if nothing could shake his confidence. He firmly believed that he could reach the 3rd sky of life and death realm. At this moment, he had already ignored all negative emotions. Even if the heavens told him that he couldn't succeed, he would turn a deaf ear to them. If he didn't go crazy, he wouldn't survive. If they didn't stake everything in one throw, there would be no hope of victory. More and more cracks appeared on his body. At this moment, Yi Chen was like a human-shaped porcelain that could shatter at any moment. Strands of flames spurted out from those cracks, and upon closer inspection, one could see that these flames were actually formed from tiny runes. These runes were even smaller than viruses, and they were arranged closely together. Each strand of flame was formed from millions upon millions of runes. It was enough to make one's scalp go numb. Bang! All of a sudden, one of Yi Chen's arms exploded, turning into ashes and disappearing. I have to say, you are the craziest genius I have ever seen. You are not in a desperate situation, yet you dare to gamble with your life. But in my opinion, craziness also means stupidity. This kind of person usually doesn't live long. The Troll Emperor stood in the distance and watched calmly. He had no intention of attacking. There was no expression of pain on Yi Chen's face. He calmly said, "This isn't a gamble, because I will succeed." Rules are used to restrict people, but they can also be broken by others, let alone these incomplete rules. I don't want to argue with you. Let the truth tell us who is right and who is wrong, the Troll Emperor sneered. Yi Chen's other arm was also destroyed. This was a complete destruction from the inside out. Bang, 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 bang. Like a chain reaction, both of Yi Chen's legs and torso were destroyed. In the end, only Yi Chen's head was left, and this head was covered in cracks. Every inch of his body had tens of thousands of cracks. Even a single strand of hair had many cracks. The truth has proven that I am right. The Troll Emperor laughed loudly. You are wrong. As he said these words, Yi Chen's head exploded. But strangely, a silver sphere didn't explode. It was round and without any dust. Everything in the world was reflected inside. Then, Yi Chen's entire life appeared inside. From the original world to the current world, every bit of Yi Chen's life was repeated in this silver sphere. It was as if he had experienced 2 lifetimes again. Buzz! The heaven and earth suddenly trembled. It was the resonance of the great Tao. In the next moment, 9 colored heavenly flowers fell from the sky. They were even more powerful than the 7 colored heavenly flowers. What? Who entered life and death realm? No, this is 9 colored heavenly flowers. This has never happened in Elysium before. After entering the life and death realm, heavenly flowers would fall from the sky. The lowest would be white flowers, followed by 3, 5, 7, and so on. In other words, the number of 7 colored flowers had already reached the bottom, and it was impossible for 9 colored flowers to appear. At this moment, even in the midst of a life and death battle, the attention of everyone in True Spirit World was still attracted by the 9 colored flowers. 9 colored heavenly flowers? This is the completion of the rules. Xianhu cried out in astonishment. From the palace spirit, Xianhu already knew that Elysium's rules were not complete. Therefore, only the most outstanding geniuses could cultivate to the first layer of life and death realm, with the highest not exceeding the second layer. Even if others knew the true cultivation method of life and death realm, they would not be able to condense a Tao gate. Forcibly condensing a Tao gate would only lead to their own destruction. As a peak first layer life and death realm, Xianhu naturally felt that the suppression of the rules on her Tao gate had decreased a lot. It should be known that when she condensed her Tao gate had almost collapsed. This was the backlash of the rules. The rules have actually improved a bit. In the conferred King Palace, the palace spirit raised its head, its face full of astonishment and delight. Due to the special nature of the conferred King Palace, the palace spirit couldn't leave the palace, and naturally couldn't participate in the battle. It could only watch as Elysium gradually fell. However, at this moment, it seemed to see a turning point. Look, the 9 colored heavenly flowers are coming from Yi Chen's direction. His direction has the most 9 colored heavenly flowers. Soon, someone noticed that the 9 colored flowers were the densest in Yi Chen's location. It was almost like a snowstorm formed by the flowers. Bathing in the 9 colored heavenly flowers, the silver light sphere unexpectedly started to breathe rhythmically. Although the faint breathing sound was not loud, it resonated with the entire sky. Impossible. He can't possibly break through to the 3rd layer. The Troll Emperor was both shocked and furious as he punched toward the silver light sphere bathing in the 9-colored heavenly flowers. "Why are you in such a hurry?" A strand of formless sword light blocked the Troll Emperor's attack. The Troll Emperor retreated dozens of steps. Cracks appeared on his hand, and blood splashed everywhere. His pupils dilated, not knowing how Yi Chen attacked him. Swoosh! Swoosh! The sound of blood flowing was like a waterfall. At the same time, a human shadow appeared outside the silver light sphere. Then, with the human shadow as the frame, bones, flesh, internal organs, skin, and hair started to appear. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen's body was formed. In the next second, the shocking sky cracked open on its own, and the endless yuan qi from the heaven and earth condensed into a yuan qi river, pouring into Yi Chen's head. The yuan qi river was endless, and it was hard to tell how much it had poured in within a second. Yi Chen's seemingly tiny body was like a black hole that could never be filled up. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's aura continued to rise. Third sky of life and death realm. Peak third sky of life and death realm. In one breath, Yi Chen reached the peak of the third layer of life and death realm. Not only was his Jin Yuan several times thicker, but its purity had also reached a whole new level. Yi Chen even had a feeling that in terms of Jin Yuan density, even diamonds might not be able to compare. However, the mysterious thing was that his Jin Yuan was still in a liquid state, not a solid state. Indeed, the incomplete rules of the heaven and earth did not result in a complete backlash. Although most of my flesh and blood had been destroyed, there was still a trace of it that seemed to have no life force at all. However, it was also very dangerous this time. This trace of flesh and blood had already scattered in the heaven and earth, unable to be captured. It had almost been assimilated by the natural yuan qi. If it were not for the fact that I still had my consciousness and will, I would not have been able to recover. The secret of blood rebirth was that each and every cell had a will. As long as the will was not destroyed, the cell would not be destroyed. However, at that time, the fragmented will would dissipate without the control of the core will. At that time, it would depend on the strength of the core will. If the core was strong, it meant that the obsession was too deep. Even the rules couldn't completely erase it, as it had already left its mark in the heaven and earth. Yi Chen's will was undoubtedly very powerful. The 7th step Immortal sword intent itself had the power of immortality. Therefore, even if his body was destroyed, his sea of soul was not destroyed. The degree of threat was not even as high as when his body was destroyed by the Troll Emperor. At that time, even his sea of soul had been destroyed, and he hadn't reached blood rebirth yet. Of course, just the sea of soul was not enough. If all his cells were destroyed, Yi Chen would have no choice but to take over. Right now, my cultivation base is close to 20,000 years. Moreover, each and every one of my cells contains the 5th step Immortal sword intent, which is equivalent to a 6th step sword intent. In terms of body strength, even a 6th step spirit body would not be able to reach my level. 6th step spirit body represented the strength of the cells themselves. In Yi Chen's case, his cells were still at the 5th step spirit body level, but they contained the 5th step Immortal sword intent. It was like wearing a layer of armor, and its defense surpassed the cells of a 6th step spirit body. In the future, if he met someone much stronger than Yi Chen, the opponent might only be able to tear him into pieces, but not turn him into a bloody mist. If he met an opponent at the same level, even if Yi Chen didn't retaliate, the opponent would only be able to leave some marks on his body. This was already somewhat similar to the sword body. Of course, the sword body was not only powerful in terms of defense, but it could also transform the Jin Yuan within the body into sword Yuan. There were some differences between the two. So what if you've broken through to the 3rd sky of life and death realm? My demonic power is boundless for you. How are you going to kill me? The Troll Emperor calmed down. Is that so? Swish. With a wave of his hand, the demon slaughtering sword appeared in Yi Chen's hand as he slashed at the Troll Emperor. Chapter 10:16. Boom. Yi Chen's sword attack was the 3rd movement of the vibrational sword spell, the Sky Absolute Sword. As soon as the sword was shot out, the sky and earth resonated. It was so fast that it was close to teleportation. The Troll Emperor only saw the sword light flashing in front of his eyes. The next moment, his body was cut in half. His body kept shaking, and then with a bang, he turned into blood mist. The sword light from the Sky Absolute Sword contained a vibrating power that was not much stronger than before. However, no one knew whether it was a coincidence or not, but the vibrating power on the sword light matched the vibrating power of the sky and earth, which caused his body to be unable to bear it. After being split in half, his body exploded into blood mist. Autumn Water. After throwing out a sword attack, Yi Chen's second sword attack followed right after. This sword attack was the fourth movement of the Autumn Water sword spell. The surreal space was sparkling, and the moonlight was shattered. The water-like sword light landed right in the middle of the blood mist. Then, it exploded out in all directions like a water thunder. The tiny spiral-shaped sword chi killed the blood mist in the surroundings, destroying the willpower within it. Merciless water and fire. Before the power of the second sword attack could fully spread out, Yi Chen's third sword attack came. This time, it was the destructive merciless water and fire. Both swords were thrown out horizontally and vertically, and a green cross-shaped sword screen shot out. The sky and the earth seemed to be divided into 4 parts. The blood mist was also divided into 4 parts. With the cross-shaped sword screen as the origin, the horrifying fusion power of water and fire swept out. The fusion power of water and fire contained the coldness of water, and the violent heat of fire. The fusion process was also the process of collision. Together with the destructive sword intent, it explained the meaning of destruction and doomsday. That area became an energy black hole, swallowing everything it could. Moment of glory. In the end, Yi Chen's strongest sword attack came. His body leaned forward, and Yi Chen was like a peerless sword. He and the sword became one, flying towards the energy black hole. When he got close to the energy black hole, the powerful space-stopping power immediately froze everything. Even the uncontrollable energy black hole stopped moving. Shoo! Like a feather, Yi Chen's sword pierced through the energy black hole, and then he retreated. As he flew back, the space-stop effect weakened, so it looked like Yi Chen was getting faster and faster, as if the whole world was expanding. It might have been a moment, or it might have been a long time. The energy black hole burst out a strong light that surpassed that of the sun. The solid light instantly filled the area within a radius of tens of thousands of miles, then hundreds of thousands of miles, then millions of miles. The sea near the Heavenly Gaze Sea was still gloomy and bleak a moment ago, but after a thousandth of a second, everything within a radius of millions of miles was filled with the strong light. Everyone's shadows were stretched infinitely until their shadows and bodies were swallowed by the strong light. Only Yi Chen himself was still clearly visible in the strong light. When the strong light touched his body, it immediately bounced back. Rumble. After a long time, an earth-shattering explosion finally rang out. No one could describe how terrifying this explosion was. It was like the sound of heaven and earth being destroyed, or like the first clap of thunder when the world was formed. It could shake all living things to death, but it could also wake all living things up from their slumber. What's going on? Being swallowed by the strong light, everyone stopped fighting. They wanted to use their soul force to sense, but the closer they got to the center of the explosion, the more their soul force became fragmented. The strong light lasted for a long time, more than the time it took to drink half a cup of tea. Under everyone's patience, the strong light finally dissipated strand by strand. The gloominess and bleakness in the world seemed to be swallowed by this strong light, and everything became clear again. What a shocking aura. Before, when Yi Chen summoned the 9-colored sky flower, everyone naturally knew that it was caused by the battle between Yi Chen and the Troll Emperor. But now, they only saw Yi Chen, not the Troll Emperor. Moreover, the aura on Yi Chen's body was frighteningly powerful. It wasn't that this aura was boundless, but that it was too sharp. It was as if it was formed by millions of tiny swords, shooting out in all directions. Soul Force tried to sense Yi Chen, but it was instantly sliced into pieces. They couldn't sense Yi Chen himself, and could only tell who it was from the special aura. As the cause of all this, Yi Chen frowned. Still can't kill him? No wonder in ancient times, Many foreign race experts could only be sealed and not killed. This Troll Emperor's cultivation had been suppressed by two heavens, and his essence, energy, and soul hadn't recovered yet. He's still in a weak state. I'm afraid that before he was sealed, his strength was at the same level as Senior Yuan Emperor. But I've more or less understood this demon's cultivation. He's already reached the hundreds of thousands of years level. Compared to my true Yuan, his demonic energy is indeed endless. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, a ripple appeared in the void, and dozens of broad bean-sized meatballs squeezed out of the space. Yi Chen could tell with a single glance that these bean-sized meatballs had an astonishing quality. Their density even surpassed extreme-grade metals, which was the result of extreme compression. The blood and chi power emitted by one bean-sized meatball was more powerful than 10,000 ordinary people combined. The meatballs condensed like lightning, and then suddenly expanded, turning into the image of the Troll Emperor. You. The Troll Emperor pointed at Yi Chen, his face full of shock and anger. The other's attack had wiped out 1/3 of his cultivation. It had to be known that his demonic energy had reached the hundreds of thousands of years level, which was equivalent to those demons with heaven realm cultivation methods bitterly cultivating for tens of thousands of years. Moreover, he had condensed part of the blood mist at the critical moment, forming many meatballs, and then crazily compressing them. This way, the destructive power would be evenly distributed on the meatballs, and the more compact they were, the smaller they would receive. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to guarantee that he would be able to survive. Times have changed. You should be aware of this. At this moment, be it defense or offense, Yi Chen had surpassed his opponent. Previously, he was barely at the level of 7 stars. Of course, the increase in his strength was not entirely due to his cultivation base reaching the 3rd layer of life and death realm. It was also related to his body. Every single cell in his body contained the 5th step Immortal sword intent. Even without using Jin Yuan or core sword intent, he could kill an ordinary life and death king with a single punch. The powerful sword intent contained within his cells allowed Yi Chen's control over his strength to reach the pinnacle. Not even the slightest bit could escape his senses. This kind of feeling was akin to a punch that could deal twice the damage. His mind and body were one, and he could erupt with all his might. Therefore, it was still the same sword art, but after the fine control of Jin Yuan, its might had greatly increased. This was already far beyond the realm of minute subtlety. Minute subtlety meant that one could see very clearly, but it didn't mean that one could do it that well. A drop of water might seem ordinary, but if its power could be completely aroused, its might would be astonishing. This was precisely the so-called turning the rotten into the magical. Yi Chen couldn't help but recall a saying, the human body was originally a small world with boundless potential. You might think that you had used up all of your potential, but the deeper potential had yet to be unearthed. External strength could be cultivated, and internal strength could also be cultivated. However, this kind of cultivation was not systematic, and could only be aroused by one's will. Lu Xiaoyou's life-burning sword and Du Guju's blade filled with grief and indignation were both manifestations of potential bursting out. However, they couldn't control it, and could only act according to their instincts. Very good. You should be proud of being able to force me to this extent. However, I, Troll Emperor, also have some tricks that I haven't used yet. I'd like to see if you can withstand my full power fist. Sucking in a deep breath, Troll Emperor's eyes turned extremely cold. Boom! The heavens and earth shook. Troll Emperor's body leaned forward, as though he was about to throw a punch. A shocking scene occurred. In front of Yi Chen, another Troll Emperor suddenly appeared, and a fist was aimed at Yi Chen's chest. This kind of method could no longer be described with words. Speed was meaningless in front of him. Yi Chen's eyes revealed traces of shock, but he quickly calmed down. Actually, with the state of no sword in his hand, and no sword in his heart, he could block this fist. However, he wanted to test the extent of his defense. Boom! A sound like that of a drum rang out. A huge circle of ripples spread out, and Yi Chen's entire body was sent flying. However, the Troll Emperor's expression was extremely ugly. This punch only left a shallow fist mark on Yi Chen's chest. Before this, although Yi Chen could exchange countless blows with him without suffering any damage, that was the result of brute force. Yi Chen had never taken a single punch from him. Attacking against attacking, and being attacked, were two different concepts. The difference in damage received was like heaven and earth. I don't believe it. The Troll Emperor threw another punch. This time, the Troll Emperor far behind him disappeared, and in front of Yi Chen, a new Troll Emperor appeared. In other words, this ultimate move of the Troll Emperor could only be used by two people. It was impossible for three Troll Emperors to appear at the same time. This punch, the Troll Emperor, was aimed at Yi Chen's head. I don't have the hobby of being beaten. With the demon-slaying sword horizontally, Yi Chen borrowed the opponent's strength to deflect the opponent's fist and hit the air. Poochie. Following that, Yi Chen's sword fell, and the Troll Emperor's body was split into two. However, with two Troll Emperors existing at the same time, Yi Chen's sword could not hurt the Troll Emperor, unless he could hit both of them. There's not enough time. Let's kill the other demon kings first. With a thought, a sharp sword slashed towards the Troll Emperor. This was the 9 return to 1 sword technique. With Yi Chen's current use of strength, the Imperial sword technique was enough to entangle the opponent, while his main body could escape. His body instantly disappeared, and Yi Chen appeared near an Elysium king and 3 demon kings. Without even looking, Yi Chen swung his sword and left. Poochie poochie. The 3 demon kings completely disappeared. In the next moment, another 2-meter demon king fell in another place, and then, in a short period of time, Yi Chen killed dozens of demon kings. Not a single demon king was a match for his sword. Although he did not have Xu Jing's crushing AoE killing ability, in terms of efficiency, he far surpassed Xu Jing, because whether it was a 4-star demon king, a 5-star demon king, or even a 6-star demon, the result was the same. There was no difference. 1 man and 1 sword, Yi Chen completed a beautiful turn. Chapter 10:17. No. All the Devil Kings were frightened by Yi Chen's strength. With his speed, it wouldn't take long for him to kill all of them. The so-called occupation of Elysium and enslavement of Elysium was nothing more than a joke in front of him. Immediately, they were all stupefied. Powerful, this is true power. With a single person's strength, he overturned the entire battle. Jailer's eyes shone. In truth, as a king who had lived for a long time, he didn't care how many kings Elysium had. Unless the number of Elysium's kings could be multiplied by several folds, it was meaningless. What he cared about was whether there was an absolutely powerful character in Elysium. It was like raising GU. Countless GU worms would devour each other until a GU king was born. The value of this GU king would far surpass all the GU worms consumed. Without a doubt, Yi Chen was this GU king. He alone could accomplish what all the others combined couldn't. In other words, he alone was equivalent to hundreds or thousands of kings. This didn't mean that Yi Chen alone could contend against hundreds or thousands of kings. Rather, in a group battle, Yi Chen could kill so many kings, and no one could stop him. The current Yi Chen was equivalent to a titled monarch in ancient times. With him, Elysium would have the cornerstone to win against the other races. Kill. 3 6-star Devil Kings and 15 5-star Devil Kings joined hands and attacked. They couldn't ignore Yi Chen, who had killed too many Devil Kings. In just a short while, they had already lost more than 50 Devil Kings. Yi Chen's figure was light and nimble, but the feeling he gave off was exceptionally sharp. Sword lights crisscrossed the void, and with each flash, several Devil Kings would be killed. After 5 sword strikes, only 1 6-star Devil King remained. However, when Yi Chen turned around, this 6-star Devil King's body suddenly disintegrated, turning into a pile of ash. Boom 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 boom. In the sky, hundreds of different colored light beams shot toward Yi Chen. These were the attacks of the puppet battleships. Any one of them could kill an ordinary peak king. This was a killing power that had been accumulated for a long time. Unfortunately, in Yi Chen's eyes, these hundreds of light beams were full of holes. After all, puppet battleships were puppet battleships. They needed people to control them. In terms of details, they couldn't achieve the same level of precision. These hundreds of light beams seemed to attack Yi Chen at the same time, but in fact, there were still some in front and some behind, and there were blind spots. Yi Chen only used one sword strike against the hundreds of light pillars with astonishing momentum. Bang! The first light pillar to attack Yi Chen was deflected by the devil's slaying sword, and as if it was refracted, it collided with another light pillar. Soon after, a scalp-numbing scene occurred. Like a chain reaction, or as if Yi Chen had already calculated countless times, the second light pillar changed its trajectory after colliding with the first, colliding with the third light pillar. The third light pillar blocked the fourth light pillar, and the fourth light pillar cut the fifth and sixth light pillars in half. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, all the light pillars lost their trajectory and exploded in the sky. At first glance, one would think that there was an invisible maze in the void. These light pillars entered the maze and madly exploded, but they couldn't reach the end, Yi Chen's position. In the puppet battleships, all the demons looked at Yi Chen as if they were looking at a ghost. One sword strike had destroyed the combined attack of hundreds of puppet battleships. Could it not be so exaggerated? Didn't this mean that the puppet battleships were just toys in the eyes of the opponent? Peng! 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 Suddenly, a large number of puppet battleships exploded. It turned out that many of the light pillars had changed their trajectories time and time again and shot into the sky. Although a lot of energy had been consumed while changing their trajectories, these light pillars had also fused with the energy of other light pillars. The puppet battleships naturally couldn't block them. Invincible. On the true spirit world side, everyone was wild with joy. Yi Chen's strength had already surpassed their imaginations. Although his strength had yet to reach the level of monarchs in ancient times, his techniques were simply unimaginable. They were very clear on how powerful the light beams from those puppet battleships were. Under normal circumstances, a single light beam would be enough to shatter the body of a weaker king. But, after accumulating power, it would have the destructive power to kill an ordinary peak king. Yi Chen had only used one sword strike to resolve all the dangers. It could be said that his technique was miraculous. The current him is no longer an existence that can be killed by numbers. Xianhu also saw this scene. Roaming in the void, Yi Chen killed more and more devil kings. From a few dozen to 100, and then to 200, and then beyond 200. Originally, there were more than 500 devil kings, but now, only half remained. Yi Chen's existence was practically a nightmare for devils. Each and every one of them was incomparably terrified and had lost all morale. This couldn't be blamed on them. Since they could fight until now, they were naturally not afraid of death. However, the opponent was simply too powerful, to the point where they couldn't muster up any fighting spirit. For example, if the Elysium didn't have Yi Chen, just the Troll Emperor alone would be able to kill Elysium's morale completely. On the battlefield, the general commanded the entire army. However, if the general himself was an invincible existence and led the soldiers in a killing spree, the morale of the soldiers would soar, while the enemy would naturally be routed. It was the same logic. All puppet battleships, leave. At this moment, the Troll Emperor's voice resounded. Swoosh! Swoosh! Hearing his words, the less than 200 remaining puppet battleships simultaneously flew away. With Yi Chen present, they wouldn't be of much use, and could only add to the losses. It should be known that the value of each puppet battleship was astonishing. If all 400 of them were lost, even if they won this battle, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Everyone, listen up. Our fiend ancestral tree is about to descend. Elysium's doomsday is close at hand. At that time, even 10 Yi Chen won't be enough to kill you. The Troll Emperor's voice was extremely cold and full of killing intent. The fiend ancestral tree is about to descend. Haha, there's hope. As long as the fiend ancestral tree descends, I'll be able to recover to the 5th layer of life and death realm. Coupled with the demon's martial arts, who will be my opponent? That's right. Who cares about Yi Chen? If we weren't suppressed, not to mention 10 Yi Chen, even 20 or 30 Yi Chen wouldn't be enough for us to kill. Hearing the news of the fiend ancestral tree's imminent arrival, the remaining demon kings were all incomparably excited. Soon after, their sinister gazes landed on Yi Chen. In their eyes, Yi Chen was already a dead man. Humph, although the losses are great, as long as we capture the Elysium and complete the mission that the demons have failed to accomplish for hundreds of thousands of years, the higher-ups will still reward me greatly and won't punish me. The Troll Emperor didn't care about the casualties of the Demon Kings. What he cared about was whether he could capture the Elysium or not. Is the fiend ancestral tree about to descend? Shu King's eyes were filled with regret. He didn't regret targeting the Chaos Demon Sea, but he regretted letting the Demon Flower Emperor summon the Demon Space. If the Demon Space hadn't been summoned, it wouldn't have been so easy for the demons to find the Demon Space. Now, everything was too late. He was very clear about the consequences of the Fiend Ancestral Tree's arrival. In fact, whether the Demon Space was summoned or not, the demons could still find it. It was just that it would take a lot of time. Moreover, if they couldn't find the Demon Space, the demons wouldn't have attacked the Elysium so early. Delaying it for 1 or 2 years wouldn't change the result. After all, while Yi Chen was strong, the Troll Emperor's spirit was also recovering from the seal. Whether it was good or bad, no one knew. What should come has finally come. The Demon Flower Emperor sighed, a bitter smile appearing on his face. In an instant, the morale of the Elysium's side fell. They couldn't imagine how powerful their opponents would be once the Fiend Ancestral Tree descended. Yi Chen, you're dead meat. I, Togula, will be the first to kill you. A 6-star devil shouted at Yi Chen. I'm afraid you won't have the chance. Yi Chen's expression turned even colder. His whole body swept over, annihilating the opponent. Kill. Kill. The only thing Yi Chen could do now was to kill more Demon Kings. As for what would happen next, he couldn't care less. He would do his best and leave the rest to fate. Kill. The other kings of the Elysium also reacted. Who cared about the future? Since they were going to die anyway, killing a few more Demon Kings before they died was a good thing. The Demons and Demon Kings originally had the advantage in terms of numbers, but after Yi Chen killed half of them, they were at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. They only had 200 people, while the Elysium side had more than 250 Demon Kings. Half of them were underground Demon Kings. With Yi Chen constantly reducing the number of Demon Kings, they started a real counterattack for the first time. Demon Kings fell one after another. Unable to gain the advantage in terms of numbers, the Elysium side finally became stronger. Not only did they have an unparalleled existence like Yi Chen, but they also had the golden dragon Shu Jing. Apart from that, the 6-star devils also had Murong Qingcheng, Xianhu, Jailer, Dugu Ju, Shu King, and the underground tribe's Grand Patriarch, the white-haired old man, and the brown-clothed old man. Other than the fact that their low-end combat strength was slightly inferior, in terms of high-end combat strength, the Elysium was above the demons. No. After the cursed Demon Emperor, another heavyweight of the demons fell. It was the Lord of Fear. He died under the joint attack of Yi Chen and the white-haired old man. With just one joint attack, the Lord of Fear completely disappeared. There's no time to lose. Let's join hands and kill the Troll Emperor. The white-haired old man suggested. All right. Yi Chen nodded. It would be extremely difficult for him to kill the Troll Emperor alone. If the white-haired old man cooperated with him, it should be much easier. However, at this moment, the space above the sea suddenly collapsed into billions of pieces. A huge ancient tree that connected the sky and the earth descended from the sky, taking root in the seabed. This was an ancient tree that emitted boundless demonic chi. It was much more terrifying than the demonic energy source. Its trunk was several hundred li thick and several thousand li tall. Its huge shadow shrouded the world. The demon ancestral tree had descended. Chapter 1018. The demon ancestral tree of us, the demons, has finally descended. This time, who can stop us? The demons, stop us. Kill anyone who dares to stop us. The descent of the demon ancestral tree had caused the demon kings to enter a state of extreme excitement, almost to the point of insanity. There were several times when the overall situation was in their grasp, but the tables were turned several times. After experiencing countless twists and turns, in the end, victory still belonged to the demons, belonged to them. This was supreme glory. Haha, Blackstone, you died so early, but I, Nine Nether, survived. This is your misfortune, but my fortune. Nine Nether Demon laughed so hard that he was about to cry. Previously, he was chased by the Dragon King and Shenhu. Now, he was hiding far away from Yi Chen. As a proud demons, Nine Nether felt that he was about to suffocate. He wished he could immediately restore his cultivation realm and kill everyone. This day has finally come. The giant devil emperor looked up at the sky. Aside from excitement and joy, there was also a strong sense of savagery. Not good. Everyone in Elysium looked at the giant ancient tree that had suddenly appeared. This ancient tree was abnormally huge. It was thousands of miles tall and had already pierced through the 3 layers of heaven. The crown of the tree was open, and the 3 layers of heaven couldn't close. No, the 3 layers of heaven seemed to be afraid of the giant ancient tree and retreated far away, exposing the starry sky to everyone's sight. For the first time, the starry sky was so close to the ground, so clear. The ancient tree was different from ordinary trees. The trunk and branches were covered with black scales. These black scales opened and closed as if they were breathing. And in the center of the trunk, there was a giant demon face. Its eyes were blood red, filled with anger and violence. On the branches, the leaves were bigger than humans. These leaves were pitch black and had complicated veins on the surface. These veins would make ordinary people dizzy just by looking at them. They contained the great Tao, contained the rules, and endless demon power flowed through the veins. The entire ancient tree was emitting a black light. Wherever the demonic light shone, the rules of Elysium all retreated. There was only one kind of rule there, and that was the rule of demons. Rolling demon energy spread in all directions. Not to mention around the ancient tree, even the starry sky was contaminated with a large amount of demon energy. This was the demon ancestral tree, the supreme holy relic of demons. The rule of demons has a limited range. Continue to kill. A roar awakened everyone in True Spirit World. Everyone could see that Yi Chen's killing speed had become even faster. Before the crimson sword light could disperse, Yi Chen had already dashed toward another person. With a sudden glance, the void was sliced into arcs by the crimson sword light, and the arcs were filled with demon kings of the demon race. Yi Chen is right. The rule of demons can't affect this place. Kill. Kill as many as you can. Stop them from approaching. Everyone reacted, and their eyes turned red. At this moment, it was truly a moment of life and death. Letting a single demon king escape would be a huge disaster for them. They couldn't let a single one escape. Even if they had to risk their lives, they had to stop them. In desperate straits, one's potential would burst forth. Some ordinary life and death kings had already exhausted their potential, but in this crisis, their potential would surge forth once again. Each and every move of theirs would be carried out to their heart's content. Their might was several times greater than before, and even doubled. However, they all ignored the changes in their bodies, and only knew to kill. Either the enemy died, or they died. There was no other choice. I can't accept this. The demon ancestral tree is right in front of me. Why am I dying at this moment? Demon kings fell one after another. Before their deaths, they roared in unwillingness. The demon ancestral tree was, after all, only a single tree. It couldn't be more powerful than the entire Elysium. It could only affect an area of several 100,000 li. Only in that area could the rule of demons exist. Outside of that area, there was still the rule of Elysium. At this moment, the place where everyone was fighting was millions of li away from the demon ancestral tree. It seemed as if something was preventing the demon ancestral tree from descending. The reason why they could instantly see the demon ancestral tree was because the demon ancestral tree was too big, and the ripples it emitted were also too frightening. Nine Nether, you can die now. Seeing Nine Nether Demon King, Yi Chen instantly changed his flight path and flew toward him. Yi Chen, you can't kill me. I can't die. Nine Nether was shocked and frantically tried to escape. It had to be said that he did have some ability. Although his strength was only at the 5-star level, he was extremely slippery. Many of the kings of Elysium who wanted to stop him were thrown off by him. Unfortunately, his opponent was Yi Chen. In just 2 blinks of an eye, Yi Chen had intercepted him. "Yi Chen, we can talk. If you can spare my life." Before Nine Nether could finish his words, a deep red sword mark appeared on his body. It was neat and tidy from head to toe. The next moment, Nine Nether's body exploded and turned into ashes. "What is there to talk about with you?" Yi Chen's voice was illusory, and he had already disappeared from his original spot. The descent of the demon ancestral tree didn't slow down the rate of the demon king's deaths. Instead, it accelerated. A moment ago, there were still more than 200 demon kings, but a moment later, there were less than 150 demon kings. However, a third of them were killed by Yi Chen, and a fifth by Xu Jing. The other powerful 6-star kings of Elysium had also killed many demon kings. As for those below 6-star, the total number of demon kings they killed was very small. This couldn't be blamed on them. Even if they had the advantage in numbers, it was still very difficult for them to kill their opponents at the same level. It was the same logic as before when the demon kings wanted to kill them. Originally, Yi Chen had planned to join forces with the white-haired elder to kill the Troll Emperor. Unfortunately, the Troll Emperor seemed to know their plan. As soon as the two of them killed the Lord of Fear, the Troll Emperor escaped far away. For a while, Yi Chen couldn't catch up to him. After all, they were separated by more than 1,000,000 miles. Once the Troll Emperor's body grew to a size of several hundred miles, his speed would increase dramatically. Therefore, Yi Chen gave up on the idea of killing the Troll Emperor now. It would be fine as long as he didn't let the Troll Emperor get close to the demon ancestral tree. "Lord Troll Emperor, we've come to help you." Right at this moment, 8 demon kings suddenly rushed out of the demon ancestral tree. The aura of these 8 demon kings was extremely frightening, even more frightening than the Troll Emperor. Among them, 5 were at the peak of the 5th layer of Life and Death realm, while the other 3 were at the 6th layer of Life and Death realm. They had completely recovered, and the Elysium couldn't suppress them anymore. They were wearing battle armors made of black leaves, which seemed to counteract the suppression of the Elysium's rules. The demon ancestral tree was unsealed by them. Even before the Troll Emperor escaped, they had already found the demon space and started to arrange arrays, accumulating power. This accumulation took several years, and they only unsealed it today. Otherwise, nobody would have been able to undo the seal of the demon space, not even the Troll Emperor. The 8 demon kings aggressively flew over, and the hearts of the Elysium's people turned cold. Not to mention the 3 6th-layer demon kings, just the 5 peak 5th-layer demon kings were equivalent to 5 7-star level demon kings. Moreover, they were at least high-grade 7-star level. 6th-layer demon kings were equivalent to 8-star battle strength. 8-star battle strength. What could they use to fight? Huff huff huff. However, an opportunity had arrived. 8 vines suddenly shot out of the seabed. These 8 vines were like huge dragons, coiling around the 8 demon kings. No matter how powerful they were, they couldn't break free from the vines' bindings. Even splitting their bodies didn't work. The vines seemed to contain the Great Tao's rules, locking onto their souls. In the blink of an eye, the 8 demon kings were dragged to the seabed. Immediately afterward, the seawater surged, and waves as high as 10,000 zhong soared into the sky. A colossus emerged from the seawater. It was also an ancient tree, a crimson-yellow tree. Its height was not inferior to that of the fiend demon ancestral tree. In fact, it was even taller. At the center of the ancient tree was a face. It was an extremely aged face, and one could see that there were countless pores on its trunk that were constantly breathing. This is the undying tree? Everyone's eyes widened. As far as they knew, only the undying tree could contend against the demon ancestral tree in Elysium. If the demon ancestral tree was the supreme relic of the demons, then the undying tree would be the supreme relic of Elysium. This was their first time seeing the undying tree. Ever since the ancient war, the undying tree had never shown itself. As the undying tree appeared, a thick vine was exposed, binding the demon ancestral tree from afar. It turned out that the reason the demon ancestral tree couldn't approach was because it was bound by the vine of the undying tree. The fact that the undying tree had actually appeared from the seabed was truly inconceivable. Only a few people knew that the roots of the undying tree covered more than half of Elysium. Its main body could travel underground and appear anywhere. Impossible. How could the undying tree revive? The Troll Emperor clearly knew about the undying tree as well. He also knew that the undying tree had been chopped off during the Ancient War. During the First War, Elysium was incomparably powerful, allowing them to come and go as they pleased. At that time, Ancient Emperor was a 9th-layer life and death realm expert with monstrous battle strength. Therefore, among the experts dispatched by the demons and evil spirit race, there were also peerless 9th-layer life and death realm experts. However, at that time, the world barrier of Elysium had been pierced through by the heavenly sword, and the rules had been leaked. Therefore, their realm would not be suppressed. The undying tree was chopped off by the 9th-layer life and death realm experts of the demons, and Ancient Emperor had also destroyed the demon ancestral tree of the demons. As supreme relic, the demon ancestral tree and the undying tree were existences comparable to 9th-layer life and death realm experts. Only experts of the same realm could heavily injure or even destroy them. Rumble. Countless vines fluttered in the sky, each of them several thousand li long. As they waved, the demon ancestral tree was forcibly sent flying even further away. The demon ancestral tree was clearly not to be trifled with. It crazily collided with the undying tree. Demonic chi overflowed, and demonic clouds surged. That powerful demonic light burned the branches of the undying tree. Chapter 1019. Truly frightening. The appearance of the undying tree made Yi Chen heave a sigh of relief. But the battle between the demonic ancestral tree and the undying tree made him smack his lips. Although the demonic ancestral tree had once been destroyed and this one had grown later, after hundreds of thousands of years, even if the demonic ancestral tree hadn't reached its peak, it wouldn't be far from reaching the 8th layer of life and death realm. On the other hand, the undying tree was the same as the demonic ancestral tree, having been chopped off by a peerless demons expert in the ancient era. After sleeping for countless years, it should have recovered quite a bit of yuan qi. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to tie down the demonic ancestral tree. The battle between the two was at least at the 8th layer of life and death realm. The scene was indescribable. At least, Yi Chen knew that even the slightest shockwave would be enough to kill him. Apart from this, the bodies of the two were too huge. They were thousands of li tall and hundreds of li thick. Xu Jing's dragon body might not be any shorter than the two, but it was much more slender. Moreover, Xu Jing's battle strength would drop after becoming bigger. But the two ancient trees clearly didn't have such a thing, because they were their true bodies. How could their battle strength be weakened when using their true bodies? Crack, crack. The battle between the two ancient trees affected an unimaginable range. In the sky, tens of thousands of li-long spatial cracks would appear from time to time. The boundless ocean also became turbulent because of their battle, reaching the 9 heavens. The ocean beasts within this range were out of luck. Under the battle between the two terrifying existences, they were all instantly killed. Unfortunately, they didn't have much intelligence. If they did, they would have escaped to other oceans to avoid calamity during the battle between the alien races and Elysium. Countless years later, this vast ocean was still deathly still. No living creature could survive here, because the demons and Elysium's laws were intertwined together, capable of destroying all living things. But it was also because of this that countless treasures and ores had appeared here, turning this place into one of the most frightening forbidden zones. Of course, this was a story for the future. Due to the appearance of the undying tree, the demons gave up on the idea of approaching the demon ancestral tree. Going there now was no doubt that they would be seeking death. As long as they did not get close, they would be turned into ashes by the aftermath of the battle between the two. If they couldn't get close to the demon ancestral tree, they wouldn't be able to accept the demon's rules. This made the demon kings feel disheartened. Were they still going to lose this war? Every time the situation seemed to be in their grasp, the tables would be turned. When the abyssal ancestral tree had descended, they had been happy for a while, but they had never imagined that the tables would be turned again. Unless the demonic ancestral tree could defeat the undying tree, no one would be able to stop the demonic ancestral tree. Anyone in front of it would be trash, unable to withstand a single blow. However, the battle between the demon ancestral tree and the undying tree would not end in a short time. Would they still be there when it ended? That Yi Chen's hands were stained with the blood of their demon kings. Several hundred demon kings had died at his hands. Before the abyssal ancestral tree and the undying tree decided a victor, he could completely annihilate them. How could this be? The Troll Emperor's eyes were dazed, filled with bewilderment. After planning for such a long time, it still couldn't beat all sorts of accidents. Yi Chen's continuous growth, the stronger he encountered, and the sudden appearance of the undying tree. These were all things he hadn't expected. Kai. Just as the Troll Emperor was in a daze, a sharp sword flew over. The Troll Emperor was startled and hurriedly turned his body. However, the speed of the sword was too fast, and his right arm was instantly severed from the shoulder. This wasn't the end. The sharp sword soared into the sky, and when it came down, it turned into 64 sword images. These sword images formed an 8 trigrams diagram, covering the Troll Emperor. You want to trap me? Don't even think about it. The Troll Emperor's anger and unwillingness erupted. He punched the 8 trigrams sword formation. The vast and ferocious fist energy caused the 8 trigram sword formation to show signs of collapsing before it even landed. Between the sword images, sparks flew, and clanging sounds rang out. The spatial barrier was instantly burned into countless tiny black holes. Dimensional shift. Far away, the white-haired old man formed a seal with both hands. His powerful will followed the completion of the seal, fluctuating violently. In an instant, the white-haired old man's right hand reached out, as if he had grabbed something. Slowly but firmly, he retracted his hand. Catcher. A terrifying scene occurred. The Troll Emperor and the space he was in were directly cut off, and then shifted in the direction of the white-haired old man and Yi Chen. Every time it flickered, it would travel more than 200,000 li. Unfortunately, it was only a single flicker. After another flicker, the Troll Emperor collapsed the space that was cut off, and flew in the opposite direction. Troll Emperor, since you're here, why leave? While using the 9 return to 1 sword art and the 8 trigrams extermination sword art to entangle the Troll Emperor, Yi Chen had already approached. Soon after, the white-haired old man used some unknown secret art and dragged the Troll Emperor over. The distance between the two decreased by another 200,000 li. At this moment, Yi Chen had already arrived in the sky above the Troll Emperor. Ah! The Troll Emperor crazily roared. This kind of roar was filled with the unwillingness of a hero who had no way out. If he, the Troll Emperor, could recover to his peak, he would never be afraid of anyone. Although he was not one of the best among the 7th Life and Death Realm warriors, he still had a great reputation. But now, he was being chased by a mere 7-star genius. Humiliation, unwillingness, and hatred filled his heart, igniting a demonic flame on his body. Fiend Progenitor Tree, you have arrived. As the supreme sacred object of our fiend tribe, spread your power across the heavens and earth. Our fiend tribe should not be defeated again. The Troll Emperor's voice came from his soul and spread out fiercely. Several million li away, the demon ancestral tree seemed to have heard the Troll Emperor's voice. Its black leaves rustled, and in the next moment, countless leaves automatically fell off, shooting toward the Troll Emperor's direction. Ear-piercing sounds were like millions of locusts, covering the sky and covering the earth. Crackle. The undying tree no longer attacked the demon ancestral tree. Countless vines crisscrossed in the air, forming an inescapable net in the void. As soon as the black leaves were hit by the vines, they immediately turned into ashes. However, there were too many of them. No matter how dense the net was, there were still some that slipped through. Those that slipped through the net were less than 1% of the total number of leaves. But, at a glance, there were at least millions of them. They broke free from the undying tree's blockade and flew out in a dense mass. The momentum of the black leaves was too great, and everyone noticed them. Haha, this is the leaf of the demon ancestral tree. It contains the demon's rule. Although it's not even 1/10,000th of the demon ancestral trees, the demon ancestral tree is not far from here. With the demon ancestral tree's leaf protecting us, even if we can't increase our realm by 1 level, we can at least increase by half a level. Moreover, our demon's martial arts can be used freely, and we won't be suppressed. The demon kings were already in despair. There were less than 100 of them, and each demon king had to face 2 or 3 kings of Elysium. The situation had been reversed. Seeing the demon ancestral tree's leaf flying through the air, hope was ignited in their hearts. It's a never-ending battle. The demonic race had been tormented, and had been turned around time and time again. How could the people of True Spirit World not be the same? No matter how stupid they were, they knew that the demonic ancestral tree's leaves could greatly increase the strength of the demonic race. Some Elysium kings tried to attack the black leaves, but these leaves had incomparable spirituality. They flickered a few times and dodged. Then, 12 leaves wrapped around a demon king, forming a black battle armor on their bodies. This is great. I've advanced from the 3rd layer to the peak of the 3rd layer. My consumed essence, chi, and soul have also been replenished. I don't have any injuries or weakness. Some demon kings were pleasantly surprised. If the harvest of these demon kings was already great, then the harvest of the Troll Emperor was even greater. The black battle armor on his body was composed of 36 leaves. Compared to the battle armors of other demon kings, the one on the Troll Emperor's body was even more majestic and tyrannical. Surging demonic power spread out with him as the center, looking extremely frightening. Good. Worthy of the demon ancestral tree's leaf, the Troll Emperor laughed heartily. He was originally at the 5th layer of life and death realm. After wearing the black battle armor, his realm rose to the peak of the 5th layer, causing his demonic power to double. The demonic power he had lost before was completely replenished. Moreover, the essence, chi, and soul he had lost due to being sealed for countless years had also been completely restored. He was no longer in a weak state. Yi Chen, didn't you want to fight? Then let's fight. The Troll Emperor turned around, no longer running. The leaves of the demon ancestral tree not only helped the demon kings, but also helped the demon army on the gazing ocean. The Sea of Soul realm demons wore black battle armors composed of 3 leaves. The astral reaching demons wore black battle armors composed of 1 leaf. Due to their low cultivation base, the suppression they received was also low. With the black battle armors on their bodies, their realm was no longer suppressed, and they were at their peak. Raw. The demon ancestral tree's leaves were limited, and the number of people who could obtain the black battle armors was also limited. Only 1/3 of the people had them. However, this was already enough. Like a black flood, the demon army was unstoppable. Wherever they went, blood and demonic chi filled the air. Are we going to die just like this? As the comrades beside her died one after another, Ji Shuiyan bit her lips, causing blood to flow out. Kill. More than 10 half-step demon kings charged at Ji Shuiyan. Their frightening auras were several times stronger than before, as if they were aided by a god. Among them, the most powerful one was a half-step demon king at the 3rd layer of life and death chamber. As the auras approached, Ji Shuiyan's protective Jin Yuan shattered like tofu. Ji Shuiyan closed her eyes. At this moment, even if her strength had increased by several times, it would be useless. This was a situation of certain death. Bang! Just as her body was about to shatter into pieces, a black sword light suddenly spread out with Ji Shuiyan at the center. All the demons that came in contact with this sword light instantly turned into a bloody paste. Behind Ji Shuiyan, a phantom appeared. This phantom was exactly the same as Yi Chen. Chapter 1020. It turned out that what Yi Chen had shot into Ji Shuiyan's Sea of Soul was a drop of Jin Yuan containing a powerful sword intent. This drop of Jin Yuan would only be activated at the moment of life and death. This drop of Zhenyuan had been compressed, but Yi Chen didn't dare to compress it too much. After all, Zhenyuan couldn't exist in one sea of soul. Even with the guidance of the sword intent, it was still extremely dangerous. However, Yi Chen's Zhenyuan was not something ordinary kings could compare to. This was the second layer Zhenyuan of life and death realm. Combined with the peak 6-step destruction sword intent, not to mention those under life and death realm, even famous kings wouldn't be able to kill Ji Xueyan. Apart from this drop of Zhenyuan containing sword intent was different from the Zhenyuan left in the soul sea of other kings. Their Zhenyuan could only passively defend, and couldn't actively attack. It was just like how Dragon King had left a strand of Zhenyuan in Yi Chen's soul sea, which couldn't actively attack. However, sword intent was sword intent after all, and it had a powerful offensive nature. The destruction sword intent was even more so. Not only could it passively defend Ji Xueyan, it could also counterattack, because for sword artists, offense was the best defense. The black sword light suddenly appeared, killing all the incoming half-step demon kings. Ji Xueyan stared blankly, then seemed to realize something. You've already saved me twice. In Heavenly Dream Ancient Region, Yi Chen had already saved her once. Since we meet again, it must be fate. Live well. This sword intent Zhenyuan won't be continuously consumed. It will only be activated at the moment of life and death. Yi Chen's phantom behind Ji Xueyan spoke. Different from other people's Zhenyuan, Yi Chen's sword intent Zhenyuan was full of spirituality. It wouldn't be continuously consumed once it was activated. This way, it could save a person many times. As for being able to speak, it was because Yi Chen had imprinted this sentence into the sword intent Zhenyuan in advance. It wasn't only Ji Xueyan. King phantoms appeared behind many people, such as Xuanhos, demon flower emperors, Shu kings, Dugu Jews, Dantai Mingyues, but most of them were Yi Chen's. Leaving a strand of Zhenyuan in someone's sea of soul consumed a lot of energy. However, Yi Chen's soul power was 10 times that of ordinary kings, so he was somewhat unrestrained. Puff 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 puff, Yang Jianhui, Dongfang Bai, and Lung Xinghan formed the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword array, which was invincible. Even if they encountered a half-step demon king, they could still fight. However, there were just too many of them, and many of them had their strength increased by several times. The Little Big Dipper 7-star sword array couldn't handle it and collapsed instantly. The 7 of them were drowned in the chi flow. However, in the next second, the chi flow bounced back, and 7 black arcs of sword light spread out in a fan shape. The many demons who were about to rush over were instantly chopped into meat paste. Since when did Master leave Zhenyuan in our Sea of Soul? Dongfang Bai was shocked. So Big Brother has been protecting us all the time. Yi Xian and Yi Xiaoxiao were very touched. The reason why Yi Chen didn't let them know about the Zhenyuan was because he was afraid that they would become careless and have a change of heart. Therefore, he only secretly shot the Zhenyuan into their Sea of Soul. This way, in order to survive, they would have to use all their strength and stimulate their potential. However, they wouldn't be killed by the enemy. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It wasn't just them. Many people in the Fallen Dust Sword sect had Yi Chen's Zhenyuan in their Sea of Soul. However, they didn't know about it, and even Yi Chen's parents didn't know about it. I knew that Master couldn't bear for us to die. Huang Sumei giggled. With her intelligence, she had actually guessed some of it, but she didn't dare to be sure. Because of this, she had searched in the Sea of Soul for a long time, trying to find some clues. Unfortunately, with her cultivation, how could she find Yi Chen's Zhenyuan? Therefore, she wasn't too sure. Now, the truth had finally been revealed. Master has put in a lot of effort. Obviously, he hopes that we can stimulate our potential in the fierce battle and surpass ourselves. We shouldn't let him down. Yang Jianhui took a deep breath and said, "That's right." Lung Xinghan nodded. There was a huge difference between the Little Big Dipper 7-star sword formation and the Big Dipper 7-star sword formation. One required 7 people to set up, while the other required 49. The difference in power was more than 10 times. Therefore, The Big Dipper 7-star sword formation that Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing were in had never been broken. No matter how many enemies there were, no matter how powerful they became, the Big Dipper 7-star sword formation would be able to break them all. Of course, the reason why the Big Dipper 7-star sword formation was so powerful was because the swords in their hands were different. They were 7-star swords that Yi Chen had specially made for them, and every one of them was high rank. Semi-extreme rank swords would consume too much Shen Yuan, and Yi Chen didn't have that many semi-extreme rank materials. Without going through a bloody battle, one would not be able to grow faster. After this huge battle, those who survive will all be the elites of our fallen dust sword sect. Yi Tianhao said slowly. I hope this bloody battle will end soon. Shen Yuqing was a woman after all, and she couldn't help but feel sorry for them. Zhong Haoran, Luo Hanshan, Zhu Mai, and Yi Hai, who had just returned home before the battle. Many of them had Yi Chen's silhouette appearing behind their backs. Beams of black sword light were shooting out, seeming to be unstoppable. This was a bit like bullying, since Yi Chen's sword intent Shen Yuan contained too much power. Yi Chen, you are indeed mysterious. Luo Hanshan smiled. He didn't expect this kind of change at all. He and Zhu Mai were already prepared to die. In another area, thank you. Lynch thanked Zhong Haoran. Zhong Haoran forced a smile and said, I should thank the leader. It was not him who had saved Lynch, but the sword intent Shen Yuan in his soul ocean that belonged to Yi Chen. The battle in the sea gazing was extremely fierce, and the battle of the kings on the ocean had once again become intense. Nearly 100 demon kings were all wearing black battle armors, which increased their strength by several folds. The originally one-sided situation was now showing signs of turning around. Only a few people like Xu Jing could still control the situation. As for Yi Chen's side, although the strength of the two sides was not as strong as the demon ancestral tree and the undying tree, the intensity of the battle was not inferior at all. Raising his cultivation to the peak of the fifth sky of life and death realm didn't bring much battle power to the Troll Emperor, but his spirit, chi, and soul had completely recovered, allowing him to display the power of the demon's martial arts. This increased the strength of the Troll Emperor by 8 folds, reaching the peak of 7-star level. At this moment, even if Yuan Emperor were to revive, he wouldn't be able to kill him easily. Boom. Boom. Yi Chen, I'll let you have a taste of the true demon's martial arts. Giant Devil Emperor punched Yi Chen again and again. On his fists, there was a tyrannical darkness, a blazing flash, and a scorching demonic flame at times. They were ever-changing, and their strength was ever-changing. The demon's martial arts are nothing more than this. Yi Chen's battle power was a minor level lower than the Troll Emperor's, only at the peak of 7-star. However, Yi Chen's sword art realm and control over power were not something the opponent could compare with. Even if the opponent attacked with 100% of his power, at least 50% would be neutralized by Yi Chen. On the other hand, when Yi Chen attacked with 100% of his power, the opponent could only attack with brute force. Illusion Demon Martial Art. The Troll Emperor once again displayed the previous demon's martial arts. With a punch, another Troll Emperor appeared directly in front of Yi Chen. This illusion demon martial art was a secret technique of the demons. Only the demons could display it to the limit. The Troll Emperor had only grasped a part of its essence and was far from comprehending it completely. However, it was enough. Old trick. Yi Chen turned his long sword, and the Troll Emperor's fist deviated. However, at this moment, there was an unexpected situation. In the Troll Emperor's body, there was an illusion. The illusion was no different from the Troll Emperor. It threw a punch at Yi Chen. At this moment, Yi Chen had used up all his strength and had yet to generate new strength. The illusion grasped the timing perfectly, not a bit more, not a bit less. Fool, do you really think this move is so simple? In the distance, the Troll Emperor sneered. I told you, old trick. Yi Chen's expression did not change. The demon slaughtering sword did not immediately return, but instead moved to the side at an even faster speed. Then, the hilt of the demon slaughtering sword welcomed the incoming fist. It was obviously a sword hilt, but in Yi Chen's hands, it was no different from a real sword. It was still extremely sharp, and the sword aura was threatening. Moreover, it carried a deep tearing sensation. Peng! The fist and the sword hilt clashed. Yi Chen took 3 steps back, but he did not lose his stance. On the other hand, that illusion seemed to only have enough power for one attack before collapsing instantly. He blocked it. The Troll Emperor's pupils shrank. To be honest, he could no longer understand Yi Chen's realm. His battle power was obviously higher than his opponent's, so why was he unable to gain the upper hand? At his peak, as a life and death realm warrior, he could not understand the realm of someone weaker than him. It was simply a slap in his face. Roar! The Troll Emperor's body suddenly expanded, turning into a 100 li tall giant demon. In terms of power control, he was being toyed in the palm of Yi Chen's hand. Therefore, he decided to suppress his opponent with absolute power. With his demonic power, he could transform into a 100 li tall demon while still maintaining his peak battle power. Moreover, each of his moves covered an even larger area, making it impossible for Yi Chen to easily disperse his attacks. At the same time that the Troll Emperor enlarged, Yi Chen also enlarged. He naturally knew the benefits of enlarging. This way, the energy eruption would be even more violent. Although it would consume Zhen Yuan, it could completely suppress the opponent. If he continued to deal with Yi Chen with his normal height, he would only be asking for trouble. After all, how could he use a toothpick to push aside a mountain-sized fist? After enlarging, Yi Chen was 10 li tall, which was his limit. If he enlarged any further, his strength would drop. Just like that, a 100 li tall giant demon and a 5 li tall human once again clashed. The white-haired old man frowned as he glanced at the scene and quickly retreated. This level of battle was not something he could interfere in. Intent kings were good at everything, but they could not enlarge. Chapter 1021. Boom. A fist the size of a small mountain smashed towards Yi Chen. The majestic fist energy tore through the heavens and earth. Coupled with the Troll Emperor's 50-kilometer tall body, it gave people the illusion that the sky was about to collapse. The demon-slaying sword in Yi Chen's hand also became several kilometers long, a true giant sword. Tightly gripping the demon-slaying sword in his hand, Yi Chen's wrist shook frequently, and rays of crimson sword light sprayed out. Thick spatial cracks spread wantonly, surrounding the two of them. The two of them fought from the sky to the depths of the sea, and from the depths of the sea to the starry sky. Finally, they landed on a star with a diameter of more than 50,000 kilometers. This star was a dead star without any life. There was only dust and scorching radiation. From afar, other than the Troll Emperor, who could see a black dot, Yi Chen's figure was almost invisible. However, as the two of them fought, strong lights constantly flashed on the surface of the star. Every time it flashed, the star would tremble violently. The dust floating in the air was directly blown out of the atmosphere by the qi, causing the entire star to become clear. However, the price of clarity meant destruction. The surface of the star was covered in cracks, and flames burned the sky. In the next moment, the entire star broke into pieces, and then violently exploded. As for the two of them, they had already moved to another place to continue fighting. The shockwave from the star's explosion did not affect them in the slightest. Yi Chen, it took me 100 years to create the 3 flowers borrowing the way, but it took me another 50 years to perfect it to its current state. Although you have studied it for a few years, and you have my guidance, under normal circumstances, it will take at least 3 to 5 years to cultivate the 3 flowers borrowing the way to the realm of great accomplishment. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You can take advantage of the continuous battle with the other party to accumulate essence, qi, and spirit, and break through to the realm of great accomplishment in one go. Yuan Emperor's voice sounded in Yi Chen's mind. All right. Yi Chen nodded. Before this, he had already trained the 3 flowers of the way to the initial realm. However, the initial realm could only increase his combat power by 50%, which was not enough to kill the Troll Emperor. Moreover, once the effects of the 3 flowers of the way ended, he would be weakened. Thus, he had not used it all this time, preferring to stimulate his potential over and over again. After all, once he was weakened, he would truly be finished. His opponent could easily kill him, and there would be no way for him to turn the tables. He could either not use the 3 flowers borrowing the way, or if he did, he would have to achieve great mastery in order to multiply his battle prowess. That way, he would have a chance to kill the Troll Emperor instead of being killed by him. However, it was simply too difficult to master the 3 flowers borrowing the way. Even with the guidance of its creator, the Yuan Emperor, it was impossible. After all, the latter had spent 150 years to create this secret technique. If he were to learn it, it would take him at least 5 to 10 years. Boom! Boom! The aftermath of the battle was earth-shattering. Although Yi Chen's strength did not increase by much, if one were to observe carefully, one would notice that his essence, qi, and soul were increasing in a unique way. Since this kind of increase was extremely slow and not instantaneous, the Troll Emperor did not notice anything strange. Yi Chen, this time, you are dead for sure. I can fight with you for a month, but I wonder if you can last a month with your cultivation base. The black armor on the Troll Emperor's body had an extremely unique effect. It could actually absorb the Yuan Qi in the sky and convert it into demonic Qi. Although the process of converting demonic Qi into demonic power was extremely slow, it would still have a great effect after a long time. A battle between you and me does not need a month. 1 day is more than enough. Yi Chen said indifferently. Then just wait and see. The Troll Emperor sneered. The war on True Spirit Continent was in full swing, while the war on Skysword Continent could be said to be a bloodbath. The army of the evil spirit race was 1 million, while the army of Skysword Continent was 600,000. As for the kings, it was 500 versus 300. Many of the beast kings of Bloodsky Continent had gone to Skysword Continent instead of True Spirit Continent. Therefore, the number of kings here was not small. Compared to the evil spirit race, it was 60%. Adding the existence of the Skysword Continent, the sword artists of Skysword Continent could display extraordinary strength. 600,000 army was equivalent to 700,000 army, further making up for the difference. However, the evil spirit race was not to be trifled with. They launched an all-out attack as soon as they arrived, using 200 puppet battleships to bombard the army of Skysword Continent. Although they lost dozens of battleships in the end, they also killed nearly 1/5 of the army of Skysword Continent. Suddenly, the Skysword Continent was in a difficult situation. As for the high-level kings, Emperor Yinsha was invincible. The number of kings of Skysword Continent that had died in his hands numbered in the dozens. The one blocking him now was an old monster of Skysword Continent, Old Ancestor Skysword. This old ancestor was a figure at the same level as Void Ancestor Jailer. He had lived in seclusion for hundreds of years, and his battle strength had reached the high 6-star level. However, it was obvious that he was not a match for Emperor Yinsha. Emperor Yinsha's strength was not weaker than the Lord of Fear at all. His battle strength had clearly reached the level of a 6-star overlord. When he used the Eclipse Palm technique, it could swallow the sky and corrode the sun. It was extremely terrifying. Old Ancestor Skysword was only able to contend with his opponent for a while because he had the home advantage. It was only a matter of time before he died. On the battlefield, the one with the most outstanding performance was, without a doubt, Snowsword of Gojosian. Ever since the Great Battle, his strength had made successive breakthroughs, and he had already surpassed his master, Snowflake Sword Emperor. Even Blue Cloud Sword Emperor was inferior to him by quite a bit. Next was Star Sword King. Star Sword King's 7-star point kill sword art had not only cultivated it to the 7th realm, but he had also grasped the ultimate move of 7 kills as one. This made his strength no longer weaker than Snowflake Sword Emperor and Blue Cloud Sword Emperor. Compared to Snow Sword of Gojosian, he was only 30 to 40% weaker. The gap was not too big. As for the other 10 swords of Skysword Continent, they were all dead. The 8 young beast lords were also on Skysword Continent. Among them, 6 had already died. Only the strongest, young Elephant Lord, and the fastest, young Eagle Lord, were still struggling with all their might. It could be said that Skysword Continent was many times more miserable than True Spirit Continent. They had few high-level kings, and they didn't have a peerless character like Yi Chen or a heaven-defying group-killing ability like Xu Jing. They didn't have any external help either. If nothing unexpected happened, the chances of Sky Sword Continent falling were more than 90%. If we die together. The nine-headed serpent emperor killed an evil king, but he himself was killed by another evil king. However, his death didn't attract any attention. At this moment, everyone was in danger. They couldn't even care about themselves, so how could they pay attention to others? The nine-headed serpent emperor's death was like a gust of wind blowing across a lake, leaving behind a few ripples. Zhong Tianxiang Emperor was much more tenacious than the nine-headed serpent emperor. At this moment, the advantage of a body-refining king was fully displayed. No matter how many evil kings besieged him, he could still hold on. His qi combined with his peak fifth-step spirit body allowed his physical defense to surpass even Shu kings. His protective qi power was even stronger than his protective Zhen Yuan. Apart from Zhong Tianxiang Emperor, there was another powerful character on Blood Sky Continent. It was an alluring woman who looked like a demon. Back then, she and Blue Cloud Sword Emperor had investigated the source of the demonic qi. Her true form was a huge yellow python. Her enormous snake body slithered around, and the three evil kings besieging her couldn't do anything to her. If Yi Chen were here, he would definitely feel a sense of familiarity. After all, Huang Mai's true form on Gemstone Islands was also a yellow python. From the looks of it, they should be from the same clan. Perhaps, Huang Mai was the descendant of this beautiful woman. In Sky Sword Continent's Killing Sword domain, Evil Spirit Race and Sky Sword Continent's armies were engaged in a bitter battle. Among the crowd, Huang Mai's figure suddenly appeared. Her realm was already at the peak of the third layer of Life and Death Chamber, only a step away from Life and Death Realm. Although she couldn't be considered a continent-level genius, she could still be considered a peak genius. Great-grandmother insisted on choosing Sky Sword Continent. This is great. I'm afraid we'll be completely annihilated. Huang Mai smiled bitterly. She actually wanted to go to True Spirit Continent, but her grandmother had told her that it was too dangerous. The number of demons there was twice that of Evil Spirit Race, and it didn't have the home advantage. On the other hand, Sky Sword Continent had the heavenly sword converging the sword chi of the world, allowing the sword artists to display extraordinary strength. Apart from Huang Mai, there were two other acquaintances here, Yu Bingshan and Yu Lingshuang of Silver Moon White Fox clan. Yu Lingshuang had yet to reach Life and Death Realm, and her realm was the same as Huang Mai's, at the peak of the third layer. Yu Bingshan was also at the third layer. Auntie, what do you think of True Spirit Continent? Yu Bingshan asked. It should be even more dangerous. Yu Lingshuang guessed. The two didn't come to Sky Sword Continent because they felt that True Spirit Continent was dangerous, but because their Silver Moon White Fox clan was here. True Spirit Continent couldn't care less about Sky Sword Continent's miserable situation. Because of the demonic ancestral tree leaf, they had also sunk into bitter battles. In the starry sky, Yi Chen and Troll Emperor had destroyed countless stars. What's going on? How come his spirit, qi, and soul have already climbed to such a level? Troll Emperor was bewildered. The rise of spirit, qi, and soul could allow one to fight more and more valiantly without exhaustion. However, nobody would choose to do so until the very last moment, because it would result in exhaustion, making it unsuitable for a protracted battle. His previous strength was only at the low 7-star level because he had been sealed for countless years. His spirit, qi, and soul had suffered too much damage. Yi Chen, give up. Although you can contend against me with your skills for a while, you'll become more and more exhausted as time passes. The giant devil emperor was testing the other party. You'll know very soon. Yi Chen could feel that his spirit, qi, and soul had already reached a limit. If he continued to climb, he would break through this limit and reach the qualifications to communicate with the Three Flowers' Great Tao. Dai. Troll Emperor felt a trace of uneasiness. His demonic power surged and he punched. This time, Yi Chen didn't reveal his control over his strength. Instead, he met the attack head-on. Bang! Yi Chen's body shook, and he was blasted away. However, This shake allowed Yi Chen to break through the limit of his spirit, qi, and soul. Dense spirit, qi, and soul crazily gushed out from the top of his head and connected with the three flowers' great Tao. In the next moment, three illusory flowers appeared above Yi Chen's head. One red, one yellow, and one blue, they shone brilliantly. Chapter 1022. Secret Battle Technique. The Troll Emperor's pupils suddenly shrank. He could feel that Yi Chen's essence, qi, and spirit were twice as powerful as before. His terrifying aura was like a cosmic storm, spreading out in all directions. Under the impact of the aura, a group of meteorites nearby exploded into the tiniest specks of dust. Is this the realm of the three flowers borrowing the way? The moment the three flowers formed, Yi Chen's power skyrocketed. If it was a raging lake before, then it was now a supervolcano that could erupt at any time. Apart from that, the powerful power not only did not burden him at all, but it also made him feel like he could do whatever he wanted. Because the three flowers borrowing the way borrowed essence, qi, and spirit. Essence was qi and blood, qi was true essence, and spirit was the soul. With a powerful soul, there was nothing that couldn't be controlled. Moreover, Yi Chen's own soul was enough to handle any sudden increase in power, and there would not be a situation where he could not control his power. Raising his head, Yi Chen looked at the Troll Emperor. Now, we are at the same level in terms of power, but my techniques seem to be several times stronger than yours. Don't try to fool me. It's not like I haven't seen secret battle techniques before. Indeed, when you use the secret battle technique, you will become extremely powerful. But after that, you will also become weak. There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. As long as I can hold on for this period of time, the one who will die will be you. The Troll Emperor was shocked at first, but then he laughed. If Yi Chen continued to fight with him, he really would not be able to do anything to him. In terms of power control, Yi Chen had already reached a divine level. Perhaps he could use his rich demonic power to exhaust his opponent to death, but who knew what would happen next? Now that Yi Chen had used the secret battle technique, it was his chance. As long as he could hold on for this period of time, victory would be his. He did not think that Yi Chen, whose combat power had doubled, could do anything to him. It was not like he had never encountered enemies stronger than himself. Previously, Yi Chen's combat power was higher than his, so he could not do anything to him. Oh, it seems like you're very confident. Yi Chen was familiarizing himself with the sudden increase in power, so he was not in a hurry to act. As for the Troll Emperor's reaction, it was within his expectations. The Troll Emperor was probably happy to buy time. Confidence is based on reality, but I'm sorry, you don't have the strength to kill me. The Troll Emperor shook his head. Let's give it a try then. Very soon, Yi Chen had familiarized himself with his new power. His strong cellular will gave him amazing adaptability, even though this was his first time performing the three flowers borrowing way. Raising the demon slaughtering sword high up, Yi Chen's body suddenly flashed, and the sword slashed out. The sword gleam spread out in an arc like a semicircle towards the Troll Emperor. The giant Devil Emperor took a deep breath and punched out to meet the sword light. Boom! The shockwave exploded, and the Troll Emperor's huge body was sent flying, crashing into a small star nearby. That star immediately cracked, and a huge crater appeared on it. This sword of Yi Chen's was at the same level as the Troll Emperor's. Logically, it should be a draw, but this sword was not that simple. The power was increasing, and as long as the sword gleam did not shatter at the first moment, it would have to endure an even greater force. The sword force was continuous. Green flames burned, and Yi Chen took a step forward, slashing towards the small star and the Troll Emperor on it. Poochie! The green sword veil extended to an extremely far distance, splitting the small star in half. The Troll Emperor, who was on it, was engulfed by the light produced by the star's explosion. The powerful shockwave split the two sides, and Yi Chen stood 1,000 miles away, his body as stable as Mount Tai. He knew that the Troll Emperor would not die so easily. As expected, in the center of the dazzling explosion, a black dot darted out. It was the Troll Emperor. His body returned to its original size, which was only 5 meters tall. This way, the damage he suffered would be much less. Very good, this sword made me lose 1% of my magic power, but that's it. The Troll Emperor did not care too much. This is just the beginning. The space between Yi Chen's eyebrows suddenly split open, and a silver vertical eye appeared. With a poochie, a silver beam shot out and bombarded the soul sea of the Troll Emperor. The Troll Emperor's head fell back, and he felt dizzy. Poochie, poochie, poochie. After using the 3 flowers borrowing path, Yi Chen's soul power had increased dramatically. Whether it was in quantity or quality, it had doubled, which caused the power of the soul light to increase greatly. Moreover, he could use it many times. This was the reason why Yi Chen was confident that he could kill the Troll Emperor. Otherwise, he would not have been able to kill the Troll Emperor with just his battle power. If he had felt dizzy before, then now, the Troll Emperor was having a splitting headache. As a demon, although the Troll Emperor was not proficient in soul secret techniques, his soul was extremely powerful. Almost no one in the same realm could use soul attacks to injure him, let alone destroy his soul. However, Yi Chen's soul attack had exceeded his expectations. It was actually this powerful. Of course, this was due to the secret technique, but it was also related to Yi Chen himself. How could he know that Yi Chen's soul power was 10 times that of a normal king? The strength of his soul was also unparalleled in Elysium because he had cultivated a Yuan soul secret technique. Yuan soul lock kill. After 4 consecutive soul lights, Yi Chen used the Yuan soul lock kill. An invisible golden halo shot out and entered the Troll Emperor's soul sea like lightning. It then suddenly shrank and wrapped around the Troll Emperor's soul sea. It started to spin and cut as if it wanted to cut the Troll Emperor's soul sea in half. Bastard! The giant devil emperor howled in grief. The 4 beams of silver light caused his soul sea to tremble and crack. Then, his soul sea was covered by a sharp golden ring of light. Although this golden ring of light was made of soul power, it was so dense that it was unimaginable. There were even many jagged edges on its edges. I don't have the confidence to use one. Let's use another. Yi Chen steeled his heart and used the Yuan soul lock kill again. 2 golden halos, one above and one below, completely locked the Troll Emperor's soul sea. One was slicing forward, and the other was slicing backward. However, after using Soul Light 4 times and Primordial Spirit Lock twice, he did not have much soul power left. If he continued to use it, it would inevitably affect his body's condition. After all, with his original soul power, he could only use Soul Light 5 times. Even if he doubled it and could use it 10 times, it should be known that 1 Primordial Spirit Lock would consume the same amount of Soul Light twice. The Troll Emperor was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He seemed to have gone crazy. A large amount of soul power was leaking out of his soul sea, and his own demonic power was also starting to leak. This was a sign that his soul sea was about to collapse. Yi Chen, I won't forgive you. Demon devour heart. The Troll Emperor's voice was full of resentment. This kind of resentment was almost like a curse. If the Troll Emperor hadn't shouted Yi Chen's name, but some other life and death king, he might have been cursed to death. It was hard to imagine how the Troll Emperor's voice could have such a magical power. It was simply unimaginable. Yi Chen's brows slightly creased. An intense change was happening on the Troll Emperor's body. An extremely strange aura spread out. The reason why the Troll Emperor's voice contained a curse was probably related to this strange aura. Pop! All of a sudden, the Troll Emperor's body split open. Looking carefully, one could see that the Troll Emperor's body had become hollow. Inside was a wolf-headed, human-bodied monster. Although the monster's fur was black, it didn't have the slightest bit of luster, giving off an ominous feeling. The demonic flame burned, and the Troll Emperor's body turned into ashes. The wolf-headed monster walked out from within. Its eyes had no pupils, only white. Hehe, many thanks. If not for you, I wouldn't have been created. The wolf-headed monster spoke in human language. You were created. Yi Chen felt it was inconceivable. To be precise, I am the parasitic demon inside the Troll Emperor's body. Since his soul sea was about to collapse and could not be saved, he used a secret art to recover my consciousness. As a parasitic demon, I can naturally absorb the essence of the host's body and turn his power into my own. The wolf-headed monster explained. What a troublesome fellow. Even on his deathbed, he still wants to do something like this. Yi Chen didn't know what kind of existence a parasitic demon was, but he believed that it wouldn't tell him these secrets. He could feel that this parasitic demon's strength was slightly weaker than the Troll Emperor's, but it was even more bizarre. And now, he only had about 10% of his soul force left. Obviously, he couldn't destroy the other's soul. As if guessing Yi Chen's thoughts, the wolf-headed monster laughed. I'm not that stupid. Fighting you to the death and occupying Elysium won't do me any good. So, don't worry. After this, I will leave Elysium and start a life that belongs to me. The other party's words made Yi Chen stunned. Aren't you demons? Ha, us parasitic demons are both needed and taboo to the devil race. All the parasitic demons are kept in captivity, and they only treat us as tools. If my guess is correct, a wisp of the giant devil emperor's soul origin should be rooted in my soul. One day, when his soul origin is strong enough, he will try to take my body and be reborn. The parasitic demon's aura was very ominous, but its words carried a hint of sadness. Then I wish you luck. Yi Chen believed the other party, but he didn't let his guard down. He squinted his eyes slightly. The parasitic demon didn't care. It turned around and flew towards the direction of the dead end. I hope that one day, we can meet outside. Goodbye. The next moment, the parasitic demon disappeared into the vast space. What a strange demons. He stayed where he was for a long time until the parasitic demon completely disappeared. Only then did he sigh. The demon race was different from the human race. There were only humans in the human race, and there was no difference between humans. However, there were many races in the demon race, such as the flower demon, the dark demon, the demonic demon, and this parasitic demon. It was like 100 flowers blooming together. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.